Chapter 219 He is even prettier than a woman, Part 1. This one of the younger generation wanted to have deity of medicine stay for a bit longer, but now that war is on the horizon, I do not dare ask you to stay longer for fear of something happening. After 3 days passed, Sun Qi and Tian Shu were about to leave Marquis Gu's manor, and Gu Huaijiang went out to send them off. He waved his hand, gesturing to the 2 carriages parked outside. The carriage in the back is full of luggage and has all kinds of my Easternling specialties. There are also foods that you like eating. I hope that deity of medicine does not dislike them. The entire carriage was filled with food. Sun Qi's eyes shone brightly. Very well, there's no need to be so reserved. Yu Fu, Master left 2 medical books for you. You need to study them carefully. Your studies must not be neglected. If there's anything that you don't understand, send a letter back to ask Master. Do you understand? I understand, Master. Sun Qi nodded his head in satisfaction before turning to Gu Shubai and instantly becoming rude. You need to properly train your martial arts. Look at you. Your martial ability is so mediocre and is merely a bit better than your younger brothers. If you don't train properly, how will you be able to protect Yu Fu? He said that. Gu Shubai was not training properly. Gu Yi grimaced and thought to himself that if Gu Shubai was not training properly, he would have been buried alive by Gu Huaijiang. Not to mention the fact that Gu Shubai was the strongest in the manor, but there were not many in all of Easternling who were on his level. Even Gu Huaijiang would say that the student has surpassed the master. The deity of medicine's words were just to get revenge for a personal vendetta. He still hated that eldest brother had stolen his beloved flower. Gu Shubai modestly lowered his head and saluted. Yes, this one of the younger generation will respect this lesson and will definitely train more to protect Yu Fu. Him being strong was one thing, but he also had mental fortitude. No matter how Sun Qi tried to provoke him, Gu Shubai would not fight him directly. He would just modestly accept it, making it very difficult for him to get mad. Gu Yi hid behind Gu Shubai and thought to himself that this would be a good way of dealing with Madame Su if she decided to mess with him in the future. Sun Qi snorted and turned to leave, when he suddenly heard, "Hold on!" Gu Hanamo came out through the gate and walked toward Tian Shu. Sun Qi climbed into the carriage first, as Gu Hanamo faced Tian Shu without saying anything. This left Tian Shu completely confused. What was he doing? Why was he not saying anything? Gu Hanamo summoned his courage and took a deep breath. Tian Shu, I have something to say to you. What is it? If you like your senior disciple sister, no, senior disciple brother, just keep doing your best. Don't concern yourself with what others think. Tian Shu's eyes nearly fell out of his head. What are you saying? Did Gu Hanamo not absolutely detest cross-dressing men and men who liked other men? How could he have changed so suddenly? Everyone behind him heard what they were talking about, and they were just as confused. Only Gu Shubai was smiling brightly. Father, let's all go back in first and let the 2 of them say their farewells. Once this was said, everyone left. Gu Wenqing walked over to Gu Shubai's side and asked out of curiosity, "Eldest brother, you know why 3rd brother would say that sort of thing, right?" Gu Hanmo's words relating to not hating crossdressers, did that mean that he did not hate Yu Guan and would not oppose Gu Wenqing acting? It's fine. What you said is what normal people think. I understand. But as a friend, I am happier to have your support. You have no idea, but those in Immortals Valley who dare to say anything about senior disciple sister have already been beaten by me to the point that they don't dare to say anything. The word friend landed on Gu Hanmo's heart and instantly warmed it. He could not stop himself from smiling. It turned out that Tian Shu also thought of him as a friend. That was why he did not hit him when he had expressed his disapproval. Not only did he not hit him, but he even helped him resolve the matter with Gu Wenqing. It turned out that this was what it was like to have friends. They were as tolerant as the elders and as accepting as younger brothers. It was also a little different from being brothers. Tian Shu patted him on the shoulder the same way that Gu Shubai did. In truth, the one you should apologize to is your fourth brother. He was given a beating and is quite miserable. Moreover, he wasn't playing at being an actor, nor does he like men. Your attitude was a little too much. Gu Hanamo quietly nodded, and Tian Shu smiled, turning around and walking toward the carriage. He seemed to suddenly remember something and turned back to shout to Gu Hanamo, "When there's a chance in the future, I'll let you meet my senior disciple sister. He's even more beautiful than all women. He's not some pervert who just likes to cross-dress." Chapter 220. It turned out he was pretending. Part 2. The carriage left Linen City, and there were a pair of imperial carriages waiting outside. The old driver saw this from quite far away and reported inside, "Deity of medicine, there are some members of the imperial family waiting up ahead. Do you wish to give them some face?" Sun Qi seemed to be chewing on something, and the words that he said were not very clear. Is this how Gu Huizheng does things? Didn't I tell him that I would be leaving in secret and that he should not tell Emperor Ning? What a waste of time. Just pretend that you didn't see them and go around. The old servant was very experienced. Previously, he had maintained a good posture and had his chest puffed out. It was very clear that the passengers in the carriage were not normal people. Now, he was hunched over and kept his shoulders slumped. He now had a stupid look on his face, and he pretended to have no strength in his hands. Anyone who saw this would think that this carriage did not have anyone of importance. It was simply a poor person who had no money to request a driver with more vigor. "Lord Deity of Medicine, please wait." When passing by the imperial carriages, a female voice came from inside the carriage. Sun Qi's eyebrow slightly raised and thought to himself that this person was not someone that the driver could deal with on his own, thus he nudged Tian Shu with his elbow, "You go and get rid of her." Tian Shu obediently climbed out of the carriage and saw a girl wearing exquisite clothing standing outside of the carriage with a large cloak that covered her face. "Deity of Medicine, do you still remember this one?" They had met once in Marquis Gu's manor. At that time, Eunuch Gao had been instructed to invite Sun Qi into the palace to treat the emperor, and she had tried to stop him because of the promise to confer Yu Fu the title of princess. Tian Shu had a blank expression and slightly bowed. "Princess Danyang." The round face hidden by the cloak looked up. She wore a dignified and refined smile, as she pointed at a pavilion nearby. "Would Deity of Medicine please stay and chat for a while?" "There's no need. I don't like idle talk." Princess Danyang knew that this person would act as he wished, actually daring to enter Emperor Ning's chambers without removing his sword, thus it was natural that he would dare to not give face to a princess. She did not get frustrated and looked over at the carriage that Sun Qi sat in. "It's not idle talk. It's an important matter. If Immortal Practitioner of Medicine is unwilling for fear of being delayed, my father Emperor wants to dispatch all of his civil and military officials to send Deity of Medicine off. When that happens, I fear that Deity of Medicine will be even more displeased." She was using this to threaten him. Tian Shu furrowed his brow and looked at her sideways before walking toward the pavilion. They were the only two people at the pavilion. Thus Princess Danyang spoke without any reservations. "When this one heard that Deity of Medicine and Immortal Practitioner of Medicine were leaving, I refused to believe it. Who knew that it would end up being true? Since Immortal Practitioner of Medicine is leaving like this, what about Yu Fu? Heard that they were leaving." Not even Emperor Ning had heard this news, so where did a princess like her hear this news? Tian Shu plainly responded, "Yu Fu." That's right. Princess Danyang would not forget that scene in front of Emperor Ning's bedchamber. The lofty Gu Shubai whom she admired was competing with Tian Shu like a normal person for Yu Fu. She had always thought that Yu Fu was trying to climb up the social ladder with Gu Shubai, but this ended up with her taking a slap to the face. Doesn't immortal practitioner of medicine love you, Fu? If you leave just like this, wouldn't it just be the same as giving up and giving her to Brother Shubai? Are you really fine with that? A smile flitted through his eyes, finally understanding why Princess Danyang had come to seek him out. It seemed that his acting was too good, and Princess Danyang truly believed that he liked Yu Fu and wanted to compete with Gu Shubai for her. Eastern Ling's second prince. The memory of him kneeling in front of Sun Qi and pleading for him to go into the palace to treat Emperor Ning appeared in Tian Shu's mind. Being able to adjust to the situation to accomplish his goals, that person had some ability. Tian Shu suddenly sneered, then just let her be given to the second prince. I fear that even if I am willing to allow it, the second prince might not be so fortunate. After saying this, he turned around and left the pavilion without saluting her. Princess Danyang stood in place and was beyond confused. Did he not like Yu Fu? How could he give up so easily? Sun Qi's carriage continued to advance, and the imperial carriages did not dare stop them without orders from Princess Danyang. They had no choice but to salute and send off the deity of medicine. The spring breeze was a little chilly, and Princess Danyang suddenly shuddered. It turned out that they were putting on an act. Chapter 221 An eldest sister-in-law is like a mother, Part 3. Ever since the palace's spring banquet, when Gu Shubai and Yu Fu's engagement was made official, it was as if Gu Jiuge had become a completely different person. Little Yu Fu, I think second brother is completely heartbroken. He doesn't even drink his beloved wine. A few days ago, the palace sent over some of His Majesty's personal supply of vintage wine, and father gave it all to second brother, but second brother returned it all without even opening them. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi were holding kites, as they led Yu Fu around the manor in search of an open area to release them. In the end, they chose the martial arts training area. The area was large enough. No matter how poor Gu Yi was at getting a kite to fly, it would not affect the other two. Gu Yi whispered into Yu Fu's ear while walking, and Gu Xiang said, "Don't spout so much nonsense. It's not like second brother stopped drinking wine just now. Second brother stopped drinking wine after coming back from Changzhou." Gu Yi was unwilling to let it go and said, "And wasn't that for little Yu Fu? Now, it's gone even further. Not only does second brother not drink wine, but he also doesn't even go out and hasn't even gone to visit any of the usual girls. The day before yesterday, I heard people outside say that Miss Yao Yu's doors have closed, and she is no longer allowing guests in to listen to her pipa performances." "Why has she closed her doors?" Yu Fu finally spoke but did not ask about Gu Jiuge. She asked about Yao Yu. Gu Yi scratched his head. It seems that she has been overly hurt from not being able to see second brother and no longer wants to accept guests. "There's no need for you to worry. Miss Yao Yu's pipa skill is very good, and she has saved quite a bit of money over the years. She won't starve from closing her doors to guests." Yu Fu nodded. Yao Yu was an affectionate and loyal girl. It would not be good if something happened to her because of Gu Jiuge. Gu Xiang glanced at Yu Fu. "Little Yu Fu, are you not at all worried about second brother?" Yu Fu received her kite from Gu Xiang. It was in the shape of a large white dog. It was the same as the large white dog lantern from the previous month's festival. The only difference was that this had been made by hand for her by Gu Wenqing. He said that it was to thank her for helping resolve the matter with Yu Guan. Yu Guan's restaurant had already opened. It was in a nice location with a great storefront. With him acting as the face of the restaurant acting as the manager, large crowds quickly began to gather around. Yu Fu also sent the two girls whom she had saved from the brothel to help Yu Guan. If anyone felt sleepy, someone would deliver them a pillow. The two girls had grown accustomed to doing business that required taking care of guests. They were both proficient in bringing guests in and taking care of them, which was very helpful to Yu Guan. Yu Fu pulled out the tail that was tucked between the dog's legs and straightened it out, mindlessly saying, "I am worried. An eldest sister-in-law is like a mother. Should I go and make some soup to comfort second brother?" PFT. Gu Xiang coughed up a mouthful of blood upon hearing her answer. Suddenly, they saw Gu Shubai walk over with Gu Hanamo. Both of them were smiling. Hold on, both of them. Recently, it was not just second brother who had changed drastically. Third brother had also changed quite a bit, as he was much gentler with others. Now, he was actually smiling. "You guys are flying kites. We were just about to." Gu Yi timidly glanced at Gu Hanamo, eldest brother, third brother. "You two came to train, right? Then we'll go somewhere else." Why had they chosen to come to the martial arts training area when they clearly knew that Gu Hanamo spent his days training here? Were they not just asking to be scolded? Gu Hanamo smiled a little stiffly. "It's fine. I'll accompany you guys." Everyone looked at him in shock. It was already a blessing that he did not chase them off, yet he actually said that he would keep the company while they flew their kites. The sun had risen from the west once again. Gu Hanamo did not say anything else. Taking the kite from Gu Yi, he lifted his chin. "You go over there and hold the string. Let go of the string when you feel a bit of pull on the string. Do you understand?" So that's what happened. Little Yu Fu's kite is already in the air. "Eldest brother, give me a hand." On the long road toward the palace, there was a 3-story building on the corner of the street that was tidy and refined. It could not be considered large, but it was a new shop, and the rarest part was that the shopkeeper was previously the lead actor in Huali troupe. Quite a few people came out of curiosity. They wanted to see how handsome this person was. It was inevitable that there would also be some with wicked intentions. Arriving on location, however, nobody dared to do anything. "Did you see the sign on Yushan building? Which great master do you think came up with the name?" It was Princess Zhenjiang herself who came up with it. "Ah, an actor like that Yu Guan really has quite a bit of reputation to be able to move Princess Zhenjiang." "Huh, what reputation does he have?" "I'll make it clear to you that this Yushan building is actually one of Princess Zhenjiang's businesses. He, Yu Guan, is nothing more than someone who was brought in to work as a shopkeeper." Gu Zhougu and Gu Wenqing listened to the conversation taking place outside and declined to comment, going straight inside. Not long later, a small red carriage stopped in front of Yushan building, and a girl wrapped in a purple cloak quickly walked inside. Chapter 222 Have Her Killed, Part 4. The two brothers from Marquis Gu's manor entered and went their separate ways. Gu Zhougu went to a private room on the 3rd floor on his own, while Gu Wenqing went to the rear of the restaurant to look for Yu Guan to see how he was doing. Under the skylight in the backyard, Yu Guan was very excitedly conveying something to the two girls. "That one of you knows how to play the flute and one knows how to play the zither, it works out perfectly. When the time comes, I will go and bring in some storytellers. Like that, we can cycle the performances that take place on stage. What do you two think?" "It's great." The two girls were also very happy. What they had learned proved to be useful. We only know a small amount, so it's naturally good if it can be used. Other restaurants have a storyteller at best. If this goes well, our business will definitely become very popular. Yu Guan smiled and pointed forward, wanting to give them a bit of an explanation when he suddenly saw Gu Wenqing walk in with a smile. Thinking about how his elated expression had been seen by Gu Wenqing, Yu Guan's face quickly turned red. "Fourth young sir, why have you come?" "I came to see how things were going for you." It turned out that the 4th young sir of Marquis Gu's manor had come. The two girls bowed and retreated to the side, but Gu Wenqing called for them to stop. "You two are the girls that Yu Fu saved, right?" He spoke in a polite tone, and the two girls were overwhelmed by this kindness, responding in unison. You've worked hard helping Yu Guan, or I would be worried that he would spend all day toiling away due to his lack of experience. This would be Miss Hong Zui, and this would be Miss Lu Xiu. Not only did he speak in a polite tone, but he also remembered the names of lowly people like them. Even more unbelievable was that he could correctly identify them. Now, both of them were extremely shocked. Hong Zui said, "How did fourth young sir remember the names of us lowly workers?" Yu Guan told me. The one who speaks more energetically is Miss Hong Zui, while the quieter and more prudent one is Miss Lu Xiu. As shopkeepers of Yushan Building, you must not belittle yourselves. Hong Zui and Lu Xiu had never heard someone praise them before. His tone sounded a little strict, and it was different from the gentle tone from earlier, but it charmed them even more. In an instant, the two girls hated that they could not have been born a few years later, as they would be willing to be the fourth young sir's servants. The two left in a daze, and Yu Guan covered his mouth and gently laughed. "What are you laughing at?" "I am laughing at how fourth young sir has always been like this, being kind to those of lower standing. It was the case with me, and it's the case with them too. Did you know that if they had a more proper upbringing, it's likely that they would rush to your manor and devote themselves to you?" Gu Wenqing understood what he was saying and said, "Aren't I just hoping that they will be able to properly help you?" "Alright, let's not talk about that. Fourth young sir, you heard the idea that I brought up earlier. What do you think?" The guests downstairs knew that Gu Wenqing had come, which affirmed their beliefs that Yushan Building was one of Princess Zhenjiang's businesses. Who was there that did not know that the young sirs of Marquis Gu's manor doted on their little sister? Personally coming out to show their support for her business could be considered routine. Nobody noticed a girl covered in a cloak climb up to the third floor. "Second young sir." At the private room, the girl dressed in purple stood outside and gently called out, "Come in." A light flashed through Gu Jioga's eyes. Picking up his cup, he feigned carelessness and said, "Young Miss Yin's parents are no longer around, and your only elder brother holds the lofty position of Prime Minister. It's certain that he will be negligent in caring for you. You have a gentle and quiet personality, but you should occasionally be a little strict with your servants to keep them from being negligent in caring for you." How could the servants dare to be negligent in caring for me? Yin Jiao nearly blurted something out, but she bit her lip. She had been moved by Gu Jioga's concern for her. It was only at the spring banquet when she had ignored Yin Shua and put on a performance that the people of the capital knew that a young Miss Yin existed. However, Yin Shua no longer treated her well. Not to mention the outer study, she was not even allowed to set foot outside. The manor's servants were very adept at knowing who provided for the family. Now that the Prime Minister's manor was under Yin Shua's control, if he did not treat Yin Jiao well, the servants were all too happy to slack off and neglect her. Yin Jiao could not stomach having nothing to eat but radishes and lettuce for every meal. Thus she grew thinner and thinner with each passing day. If not for Gu Jiogu inviting her out today, it was likely that Yin Shua would not have allowed her to go out. Despite clearly seeing Yin Jiao become so thin, when she was about to go out, Yin Shua only coldly said, "When you see Gu Jiogu, you need to know your boundaries. Inquiring about Yu Fu's identity is your mission. Don't go thinking about anything else." At that instant, she had a strong feeling that if she did not obey this time, Yin Shua would not show any mercy. He might even have her killed. Chapter 223 Enraptured, Part 5. Gu Jiogu smiled and poured some tea into her cup but did not ask her anything. The less he pursued, the more likely she was to take the initiative to say something. On the other hand, pressing her would likely have the opposite effect. Seeing Yin Jiao bite her lip and remain silent for some time, Gu Jiogu changed the subject. "Many things have happened at the manor recently, and I have decided to stop drinking wine. As a result, I will trouble young Miss Ian with accompanying me in drinking tea. Why is that? Ian Jiao immediately regretted asking. What other reason could there be? It was obvious with just a bit of thought. It must be because of Yu Fu's engagement to Gu Shubai. Ian Jiao wanted to hear what he thought. When it comes to the engagement between the eldest young sir and Princess Zhenjiang, I have not yet congratulated second young sir. Since it was a joyous occasion, I thought that second young sir had invited me out to a restaurant to drink wine, but it turns out that this was not the case. Gu Jiugu paused for a moment then suddenly laughed. If I wanted to drink wine, would not have sought out young Miss Ian. Young Miss Ian is gentle and refined like this fragrant cup of tea. If I wanted to drink wine, I would definitely go boating on the river and invite some performers to play the pipe. Would it not be great to enjoy that and get drunk until the sun came up? Then why not do that? I've quit. Drinking too much wine gets tiresome. In the end, tea is best. Ian Jiao's face turned red. His words meant that with other girls, he drank wine, but he only drank tea with her. Ian Jiao lowered her head and looked down at the tea in the cup. The fragrance of this tea was truly uncommon. Even she had not drank it before. She lifted the cup and tasted it, saying with uncertainty, "This is the tea that the palace just gave out, isn't it? I haven't had any before, so I don't know if my guess is right or not." As expected, young Miss Ian has good tastes. This was given to Yu Fu by His Majesty. He said that though she does not live in the palace, of the offerings to the palace, one portion goes to Princess Danyang, and another goes to her, thus he specially dispatched a group to deliver the tea to the manor. Since father also received some tea from His Majesty, Yu Fu sent the excess to this restaurant to be served to the guests. Even the best teas served in the other restaurants could not compare with the tea that had come from the palace. In an instant, Yushan Building had distinguished itself. Yin Jiao sighed to herself. It was hard to see, but Yu Fu was actually quite skilled in doing business. She really was someone with many talents. Both clever and intelligent, it was no wonder Gu Jiugu would like her. It turned out to be like that. Sure enough, His Majesty favors Lord Marquis Gu. In the past, the difference between the general's manor and the prime minister's manor was not this great, but now, His Majesty's favor for Lord Marquis Gu is even greater than before. Thinking about it, it can't be completely unrelated to the appearance of the deity of medicine. Even I was shocked upon hearing it. Who knew that even with Lord Marquis Gu occupying such a lofty position, he would still work so tirelessly for His Majesty? Gu Jiugu apologetically said, "My father has always been like this. It's just that everyone else always thinks that people with great power will naturally be arrogant. As for the Prime Minister's manor, the former Prime Minister is no longer in the capital, and your elder brother is from the younger generation. It's natural that he would not be shown as much consideration as the older officials. Things will get better with time." No. For some reason, a feeling of joy welled up in Yin Jiao's chest. I greatly admire Lord Marquis Gu's conduct. As for my eldest brother, he's just a young person and should never be compared with Lord Marquis Gu. Gu Jiugu lowered his head and took a sip of tea and thought to himself that his guess had been correct. There was some sort of disagreement between brother and sister. If that was not the case, no matter how busy Yin Shuo was, it was impossible for Yin Jiao to have become this thin without asking any questions. Your elder brother, as Prime Minister, handles court matters very appropriately. I just think quite poorly of him. To not even be able to take care of his younger sister, is that not completely letting down the former Prime Minister? Yin Jiao lowered her gaze, and a tearful look appeared. How could we all be as fortunate as Princess Zhenjiang and have such a great father or be so lucky as to have loving older brothers? If Yu Fu was born to our mother, we would love her even more. Yin Jiao's hands trembled, accidentally dropping the cup of tea on the floor. The freshly brewed tea spilled onto the floor was a vibrant green. Yin Jiao bent over to tidy it up. What a pity. Such a good cup of tea was knocked over by me before it could be savored. At the very least, in her lifetime, there had never been someone who had treated her this well. There was clearly no relationship between her and Gu Jiugu. She had merely been sent to get close to Gu Jiugu, so even if she got hurt, it should be her brother who doted on her. Unfortunately, Yin Shuo definitely would not. She could believe that if Yin Shuo had seen that earlier scene, he would definitely coldly watch her cut her hand then mockingly look at her. Only Gu Jiugu would scold her, grabbing her hand and move it away. Gu Jiugu was shocked but quickly smiled and said, "Silly girl, don't worry about objects. I'll have Yu Guan pack up some tea for you to bring back. You can slowly enjoy it then." Yin Jiao smiled through her tears, "You're the silly one. It's not because I'm worried about the tea." In an instant, she had forgotten all about Yin Shuo's warning. Looking at Gu Jiugu's tender eyes, her body gave out, and she fell into them. Chapter 224 The Second Prince Sends a Gift, Part 1. Servants, deliver the gifts that this prince chose to Marquis Gu's manor and the Prime Minister's manor. In the second prince's manor, the second prince had been neglected by Emperor Ning for such a long time that he could focus his anger in his spare time, but he devoted his efforts to something else. Being ignored by Emperor Ning was not a big deal. In any case, he was not the only one being ignored. The eldest prince would enter the palace under the pretense of visiting imperial consort Xian, yet he was not able to see Emperor Ning even once. Everyone was being treated coldly, so why should he worry? However, Princess Danyang's engagement was something to celebrate. He knew that Emperor Ning did not plan to use this to help improve the relationship with Yin Shuo, but Princess Danyang was his younger sister born from the same mother. As a result, it would be natural for Yin Shuo's side to favor him. "Yes, Your Highness." A servant stepped forward and took a look. The two gifts were particularly plentiful, and they had been hand-picked by the second prince. It was clear just how important he attached to this. He was puzzled and said, "Your Highness, which one is for Marquis Gu's manor, and which one is for the Prime Minister's manor?" The second prince pointed at the sandalwood box on the left. "This one has a peony pattern on it, is meant for girls to use. It's to be given to Princess Zhenjiang in Marquis Gu's manor. The other one with the bamboo pattern is to be given to the Prime Minister's manor. You absolutely must be sure to not make a mistake." Even his choice of brocade boxes was this thorough, so it was clear that the gifts would be extremely impressive. The second prince had truly invested a great deal of his capital. The servant was puzzled and said, "Prime Minister Yin has a lofty position and has great power. In the future, he will also become Your Highness' brother-in-law. Your Highness being so generous is something that should be done. As for Princess Zhenjiang, she's not Your Highness' sister." "What do you know?" The second prince scolded him. "If she was actually my sister, this prince would be reluctant to give it to her. Young miss, take a look. This head ornament is apparently made of crystal." Lian Zhu helped Yu Fu brush her hair every day, so she had seen everything from gifts sent by the palace to things created under Gu Huaijiang's orders to treasures brought out by Gu Shubai and the others. This led to her developing a discerning eye. For her to be so shocked, it had to be something exceptional. Yu Fu glanced at what she was holding, and Lian Zhu brought the brocade box up for her to see. This is something that the second prince just had delivered to Lord Marquis. When Lord Marquis heard that it contained a head ornament, he immediately knew that it was meant for young miss and sent someone to deliver it to the western wing. Yu Fu did not know what was inside, but just looking at the brocade box, Yu Fu knew that it was definitely not common. The second prince and Princess Danyang have a close relationship. Without him even noticing it, he ended up being affected by her tastes, thinking that all girls like peonies. He doesn't even consider my age. How could I like such a graceful and noble flower? Looking inside the box, she could not stop herself from raising an eyebrow. She found a complete set of head ornaments laying inside. They had not been made of gold or silver and inlaid with gems. Instead, it was the extremely rare pigeon's blood ruby, commonly known as pigeon's blood. Because of its vibrant color and eye-catching like a drop of blood, it had this unique name. It was no wonder Lian Zhu was so shocked. This was something that was sent into the palace as an offering. To be able to get a piece the size of a finger to be made into jewelry was already very desirable, much less an entire set of head ornaments. Though Yu Fu did not have much of a good impression of the second prince, she was still a girl. Faced with such a rare set of accessories, she found it very hard to refuse. Lian Zhu saw her expression and laughed, saying, "Young Miss is, in name, also the second prince's younger sister. Accepting a gift from him is completely normal." That was natural. The second prince would not think that her accepting this gift meant that she would stand on his side. "Yu Fu, there's nothing wrong with this. This was originally a tribute from last year, but His Majesty gave it to the second prince. He ordered it to be made into a set of head ornaments and gave it to you. After all, you can now be considered part of the imperial family. As long as it isn't going against some rule, it's fine. I just never thought that what second senior disciple said would come true. For someone as rash as the second prince, sending a set of head ornaments is a trivial matter. There will definitely be more to follow." Gu Jiugu was confused from what he was hearing. What did Tianshu say? He had been quite depressed for a few days before busying himself with trying to get closer to Yin Jiao to find out the truth behind her birth mother, thus he did not have the time to concern himself with what was happening at the manor. Gu Shubai summarized the contents of the letter sent by Tianshu. It was simply about the conversation that he had with Princess Danyang outside and how she wanted him to work with her to break up Yu Fu and Gu Shubai. Why else would it be said that Princess Danyang was stupid? She had sought out the wrong person. If she had sought out her husband, in Shua, she would definitely not have accidentally startled the snake. Gu Jiugu's expression sank upon hearing this. Just who does the second prince think he is? In order to gain the favor of Marquis Gu's manor, he desperately tries to win over our people, and he has the audacity to try and set his eyes on Yu Fu. Aside from Gu Shubai, his own eldest brother, if anyone dared to set their eyes on Yu Fu, he definitely would not treat them kindly. Gu Shubai smiled, but he's already done it, and he's put in his money. If it's as Yu Fu said, there will be even more to follow. Chapter 225. The fifth time he came for tea and chest. The corner of Yin Shua's lips curled up. "Then if you say that, does your highness not want a return gift?" The second prince was stunned, not knowing what he meant by those words. He lowered his head and thought for a moment. Just as he was about to ask a question, he suddenly heard a servant report from the outside, "Second prince, eldest young sir, the young miss has come." Before the second prince could figure out what Yin Shua meant by return gift, his attention was dragged in a different direction. He smiled and said, "So it was young Miss Yin. If not for her spectacular performance during the spring banquet, I would not have known that the Prime Minister had such a talented girl for a younger sister." Of the second prince's 5 visits to the Prime Minister's manor, what he had just said made him the most displeased. "Tien, not sure what this side story is. I'm just going to treat it as a side story taking place after 225. Chapter 226. Impeach Gu Huaijiang, Part 3. After Emperor Ning recovered from his illness, he favored his top general over his prime minister, and everyone in court understood this. This was also something that ought to be the case. Back when Yin Yan was still around, not even he could be compared to Gu Huaijiang, much less someone like Yin Shuo from the younger generation. Even if there were plenty of people praising him for his steady demeanor, modest personality, and patience, in the end, his age was still a problem. Moreover, Gu Huaijiang had kneeled for the sake of saving Emperor Ning. Not that he actually managed to kneel, but his intentions were earnest. However, court was not a battlefield. This place was a place that should have belonged to the civil officials, but there were quite a few civil officials who did not dare to say a word. They were waiting to see if this prime minister would have the courage to speak up. They figured that he would not dare. Given his young age and lack of sturdy roots in court and how he immediately went to Marquis Gu's manor to apologize after taking his position, how could he possibly dare to move against Marquis Gu's manor? Who knew that not only would he make a move, but it would also be an incredibly bold one? This subject moves to indict Marquis and head General Gu Huaijiang. During a time of peace, he moved troops without permission and without proper consideration. With Western Kun and our Eastern Ling having reached an accord and their princess coming to unite our two countries through marriage, this could sour the relations between our countries. His intentions are clearly impure. This subject concurs. The ones to step forward were two members of the imperial censorate. One was surnamed Xia, and the other was surnamed Dong. Both were veteran members. To dare to speak out in front of Emperor Ning against Gu Huaijiang when his stock was at its highest would not be possible without the two of them. Censor Ji Daogong remained in his original position with his back straight. He kept his head down, and it looked as if he would simply keep to himself. This matter was indeed unrelated to him. He was the chief official of the imperial censorate, but the two censors who had stepped forward to impeach Gu Huaijiang had not reported this matter to him. If he had not done it, who was it that gave the two of them the courage to do this? Ji Daogong quickly glanced up at where the top civil officials stood but did not say a word. Emperor Ning immediately lost his temper upon hearing the idea of impeaching Gu Huaijiang, for he thought that someone in court was jealous of him granting Marquis Gu's manor with many rewards. After hearing the rest of the accusation, he furrowed his brow. Moving the army around without permission was not a small crime, and the two censors spoke with certainty. It did not seem like they were casually trying to frame him. Emperor Ning's gaze landed on Gu Huaijiang. Marquis Gu, what do you have to say? Gu Huaijiang was not surprised, steadily stepping forward and cupping his hands in salute, responding to Your Majesty, those words are pure fiction. How could this subject not know about the movements of my own border army? Based on Emperor Ning's understanding of Gu Huaijiang, if he said that it did not happen, it did not happen. Impudence. Emperor Ning furiously said, as imperial censors, you too might have the right to work based on hearsay, you can't just bring up any nonsense that you hear up to us. Marquis Gu is the dignified standard first-rank marquis in general, yet you two dared to spout such impudent words in front of us without a proper investigation. The two censors immediately lowered their heads and cupped their hands. After Emperor Ning finished speaking, they hastily said, Your Majesty, the two of us did not immediately report it after hearing about it. We do indeed have evidence. Evidence. Gu Huaijiang was already very surprised by the impeachment, yet these two now said that they had evidence. If the evidence was sufficient, the punishment for moving an army without authorization would be the execution of the entire clan. The second prince lowered his head and turned to look at Yin Shuo. Emperor Ning said, Marquis Gu, take a close look. Has someone written this by copying your handwriting? Gu Huaijiang did not answer directly. Does Your Majesty remember when the special envoy from Western Kun came to the capital, and the military reports were nearly stolen from this subject's manor? At that time, this subject discussed a method with Your Majesty. Whenever orders were sent, there would be real orders and fake orders sent at the same time via multiple routes. Do you still remember? Emperor Ning thought about it for a moment. There was indeed such a suggestion. At that time, we were worried that the real and fake reports could be mixed up, but you said that it would be fine. The real reports would have a marking that only the members of the Gu family's army would recognize. There would definitely be no mistakes. Gu Huaijiang nodded and raised the scroll that he held. This order to move troops was indeed written by this subject, but it does not have the special Gu family's marking. It's a report meant to deceive the enemy. He turned around and calmly looked at the two imperial censors, who knew that rather than deceiving the enemy, it ended up deceiving the imperial censors. May I ask, however, how did the imperial censorate get its hands on these fake orders meant for my Gu family's army? Fake. The looks on the two imperial censors' faces changed wildly. Yin Shuo very slightly furrowed his brow and secretly gave the two a look. The two imperial censors were officials who had served for many years, and they were people who had much support, thus they quickly calmed down. Lord Marquis Gu, you said that this mark would only be recognized by the Gu family's army, so it's natural that we would not recognize it. Then whether this report is real or fake, would it not just be up to Lord Marquis Gu to decide? Chapter 227 Have you ever told His Majesty? Part 4, This would not be difficult. Gu Huaijiang thought for a bit then said, Your Majesty, this military report was sent out 5 days ago and will arrive at the border in a few days. Your Majesty can send a fast rider to investigate. When they arrive, the Gu family army should already be in the middle of carrying out the order. At that time, just see if they move or not. Won't that make it all perfectly clear? Imperial Censor Dong said, What if His Majesty dispatches someone to go and investigate, and Lord Marquis Gu also secretly sends a new report to change the order? Would that not make it impossible to find the truth? Emperor Ning slammed his desk. His biases already clearly formed. Nonsense. Even if Marquis Gu sent someone out at the same time as us, how could the troops that have already started moving return to their original positions that quickly? As civil officials, you don't understand military affairs, yet you brought out a fake military report without proper context and tried to ruin Marquis Gu's reputation. The two imperial censors dropped to their knees at the same time, a cold sweat appearing on their brows. They did not know what else they could say. Indeed, they had not thought that Gu Huaijiang would change the way in which he delivered his reports. The one who had given them this report did not tell them that this was fake. The two glanced up toward the top and hoped that person would quickly step forward to speak on their behalf. If he did not, Emperor Ning might not let them off lightly. The atmosphere became tense, and time seemed to slow to a crawl. Your Majesty, please calm down. The one to step forward was not the person that they thought it would be. Instead, it was Gu Huaijiang. It's exactly as Your Majesty said. The two imperial censors do not understand military affairs, so they don't know what is a real military report and what is a fake military report. They only know that they found military orders that go against the rule of law. That's why they wanted to impeach this subject. At its core, there's nothing wrong with this. Gu Huaijiang glanced at the two imperial censors. If civil officials were to be blamed by Your Majesty for not understanding military affairs, who will watch over the military officials? This subject hopes that Your Majesty will keep their punishment light to keep the civil officials from becoming too terrified to impeach military officials in the future. That would definitely cause the military officials to become unrestrained. Once these words came out, even the eldest prince and the second prince looked at him in shock. They were in complete shock over his serene expression. He himself was a military official, yet he said that he was worried about the military officials losing oversight from the civil officials. It could be seen just how broad-minded he was to not try and avoid being investigated. Emperor Ning had wanted to severely punish the two imperial censors, but now, he could no longer punish them heavily. He felt quite unhappy. Since Marquis Gu is willing to plead your case, we will give him face and accept it. It's just that you two will need to act more prudently in the future. When it involves a standard first-rank official, even if you did not interrogate Marquis Gu directly, you should at least report it to your superior first. If Ji Daogong had known about this matter, he could not possibly have allowed these two imperial censors to do such a thing. The two imperial censors were incredibly ashamed and blindly agreed. Gu Huaijiang said, although this subject believes that the blame does not lie with the two imperial censors, this subject is still interested in how they got their hands on the fake military report. If it was not stolen by someone with ulterior motives, they would not have been put in this position. The second prince closed his eyes in frustration. Inshuo, oh Inshuo, I naively thought that you were smart. Who knew that not only would he fail, but he would also lose some important pieces. Gu Huaijiang has been part of the court for many decades, and even your father was unable to do anything about him, yet you wanted to try with your skills. Emperor Ning came to a slow realization and was finally able to react. That's right. With you sending military reports along 5 different routes, each report will surely be guarded, so how did someone get their hands on this report? Imperial Censor Yu, Imperial Censor Dong, why have you not revealed this yet? The two imperial censors exchanged a glance. It seemed that they had decided beforehand on what they would say in such a situation. Knowing that Ji Daogong would be hard to fool, they chose people who did not understand military affairs. Their plan really was quite vicious. The person who was behind this was very likely to be someone influential in Eastern Ling's court. Emperor Ning had a faint idea of who it could be, and he grew angrier the more he thought about it. He hated that he could not smash the report on his desk on that person's head. He was truly too disappointing. It was precisely at this moment that Inshuo, who had remained silent this entire time, suddenly stepped forward. With Gu Huaijiang's guidance, Emperor Ning's suspicions were already cast on him, so his decision to step forward actually made Emperor Ning hesitant to make a decision. This subject believes that Your Majesty's thinking is correct. But there is one thing that this subject does not understand. We are currently not at war, and there has been no word of any unrest at the border. Has Marquis Gu let His Majesty know about what orders were given to the Gu family's army stationed at the border? Chapter 228, 228 It was actually Inshuo, Part 5. Today's matter really was full of twists and turns. They initially thought that the two imperial censors had been deceived into impeaching Gu Huaijiang and that the whole thing was a misunderstanding, thus everything was resolved. Who knew that Inshuo would suddenly bring up such an angle and bring things to a stalemate once more? Based on His Majesty's earlier tone, he also did not know what the real military report was. It was evident that Gu Huaijiang had sent orders to the army stationed at the border, yet he did not know about it. As the head general of the Gu family's army, there was nothing improper about Gu Huaijiang giving orders to the soldiers under his command, but he had too much military might. If he made a move, all of Eastern Ling would be shaken by that step, so precautions had to be taken. Emperor Ning furrowed his brow and hesitantly looked at Gu Huaijiang. This matter was just like that golden tally that he had granted Gu Huaijiang. There was no need for him to be informed, but if he used it, it would inevitably attract some sideways glances. There was no need to play it safe and be so respectful. Naturally, everyone hoped that he would not make use of it. Gu Huaijiang said, Prime Minister, as someone who stands above all but one, you should indeed ask this sort of question, but there is a bit of a unique situation to these orders. This Marquis cannot divulge any further information in court in front of so many people. He then cupped his hands toward Emperor Ning and said, After court is dismissed, I welcome Your Majesty to speak further. Since the deity of medicine is certain that Western Kun will start a war, why did you not tell us? Inside the imperial study, ruler and subjects sat on the sofa. After Emperor Ning finished listening to Gu Huaijiang, he immediately became frantic. Western Kun's special envoy had already visited Eastern Ling, and the princess meant to marry into the imperial family was on her way. He fully believed that Western Kun truly changed their ways and would no longer invade Eastern Ling. However, Sun Qi was not a normal person. He was an immortal who was hundreds of years old. The prophetic words that he uttered could not be ignored. Gu Huaijiang let out a sigh. This subject did not deliberately try to hide it from your majesty. Rather, this subject has reminded your majesty many times not to trust Western Kuan's people. However, your majesty felt that this subject was being too eager to go to war. Even when Western Kuan's 7th prince snuck into my manor to steal military information, your majesty dreaded stoking the flames of war and refused to punish him. This subject had no choice but to send a confidant to the border to keep an eye on Western Kuan's movements. If there were any unusual movements, they were to immediately send word back. Not to mention the past, but even now, Emperor Ning still did not want to believe it. Could it be that Western Kuan wanted to use a princess as a blindfold for the sake of obtaining the upper hand in a surprise strike on the border? Right, he had heard that Emperor Kuan had many children. Just counting the daughters, there were tens. To him, giving away an unloved princess would mean nothing. If there have already been some unexpected movements, no matter how fast the horse, it would not arrive in time. We were foolish in the past and should have trusted you when it came to military affairs. Huaijiang, what do you think we should do now? Your Majesty believes the deity of medicine's words. He waved his hand and suddenly remembered something. Huaijiang, if you really want to keep secrets from the court, is it because you suspect someone in court is working with Western Kuan? It's not quite that dire. Gu Huaijiang waved his hand. It's just that it's not good if too many people know. If one person revealed it to their madam, and that madam told a young miss, and that young miss told a maidservant. It would not be hard for someone from Western Kuan to find out about it. When that happens, they won't dare to attack. Wouldn't all of our efforts have then gone to waste? You're right. But we feel that those 2 imperial censors impeaching you did not happen by accident. If they did not have someone supporting them, how could they dare to take action against you? Gu Huaijiang did not say anything. Emperor Ning understood that he had a cautious personality, thus he made a deduction. It's not the head imperial censor, Lord Ji, so the most likely person would be. The 2 reached a tacit understanding, and Gu Huaijiang said, before there is solid evidence, this subject does not wish to suspect anyone. The previous prime minister has already resigned from his position. If this subject allows anything to happen to his only son, I fear that people would begin talking about how this subject is ruthless and uses my position as a general to squeeze out the civil officials. Emperor Ning hastily said, how could this be you squeezing them out? Yin Yan was jealous of your position and tried to kill Shu Bai. That was something that he could only blame on himself. As for Yin Shuo, we previously felt that that child was quite good. Looking back now to what Kun Wushang said, the one who wanted the poison to kill Shu Bai was actually Yin Shuo, but for what reason? Chapter 229 Who Descend to the Border, Part 1. On the trip back to the manor from the palace, Gu Huaijiang was filled with complex feelings. Stepping out of his carriage, he saw Gu Shubai and the others waiting outside to receive him. Word must have already spread. Father, are you all right? Yu Fu stepped forward and helped Gu Huaijiang inside, which made him laugh. Even though I have lived as long as I have, I am not so old that I cannot walk. There's no need to help me. Head General suffered a shock while in court. It would be best to offer a bit of this will keep outsiders from thinking that everyone in Marquis Gu's manor are durable enough to endure any beating. Yu Fu's words were not without merit, as she casually looked around outside and snorted. That blunt and unfriendly expression slightly resembled Sun Qi's. Everyone returned inside the manor, and the main gate slowly closed. Outside the manor's gate, some peddlers and pedestrians nearby were all trained in martial arts, so they were naturally able to hear what Yu Fu said. Could it be that they had been noticed? One man tapped a man who was walking in the same direction on the shoulder, and the latter looked around before quickly leaving to report. The candied haws seller gave a youth a skewer of candied haws, then gave him a look. The youth then left in the opposite direction. Yanjing lay on the roof of Marquis Gu's manor and watched the quick changes occurring outside. Shit, there are still a number of people observing. Do they really think the Gu family's army is easy to manipulate? Shubai, we really need to thank you for your strategy this time. Sure enough, Yin Shuo fell for it and stole the military report that we planned. Gu Huaijiang took a sip of tea and slowly said, if not for this, I really would not have had a chance to speak with His Majesty about Western Kun planning to invade. Now, His Majesty has already agreed to hand down a secret order to mobilize troops. I can now be at ease. Prior to this, Gu Huaijiang had constantly been anxious. Western Kun had used a princess to act as a cover. This battle would surely be fought with nothing held back. If they did not prepare properly, the situation on the battlefield would definitely be very difficult, but if they wanted to mobilize the troops, they would surely need to inform Emperor Ning. Based on Emperor Ning's desire for harmony, he most likely would not agree. With Marquis Gu's manor enjoying the Emperor's favor, Yin Shuo would definitely be seeing red, so it was just a matter of time before he took action. As a result, he deliberately created this opening, making use of the people that Yin Shuo hid outside the manor. This misled Yin Shuo into stealing the fake military report and convincing the imperial censors to impeach Gu Huaijiang in court. Speaking of, we really must thank Princess Danyang for this. If not for her stopping the deity of medicine's carriage outside of the city, I really would not have known that she had planted observers outside the manor. Upon looking into it, not only were there people from Princess Danyang's side, but there were also some from Yin Shuo's side. This worked perfectly in our favor. Gu Jiugu indignantly said, Yin Shuo and young Miss Yin are on very bad terms. I can guarantee that they are not born of the same mother. For the sake of ensuring that the identity of her birth mother cannot be uncovered, he does not allow young Miss Yin to display her talents. Because she did, he starved her until she was emaciated. Such a cruel person, how could they be worthy of the position of Prime Minister of Eastern Ling? During the past few days, he interacted with Yin Jiyao more and more, and he was getting more and more information. The secret that the father and son of the Yin family had kept hidden would eventually come out. It was definitely going to come out. Gu Shubai nodded and said, Yin Shuo has unfathomable ideas. He should have already guessed our plan and will not take this lying down. The observers stationed outside can no longer be relied upon. He will definitely think, Qi Ting. Qi Ting, who had been confined to the private prison in the manor, was now the chess piece that Yin Shuo was most likely to make use of. Those sorts of words were also the only ones that could push Gu Huaijiang to make up his mind and not be so soft-hearted. Gu Huaijiang waved his hand, no longer wanting to talk about this matter. Forget it. Leave this matter to father to think about. Right now, father has an important matter that I must send one of you to handle. The matter that father is speaking of, is it going to the border to direct the troops? That's indeed the case. Gu Huaijiang's gaze landed on Gu Shubai. He was the heir to Marquis Gu's manor and his eldest son. Whether it was martial arts or anything else, he was the best. Normally, if there was something that had to be handled, Gu Huaijiang would send him to take care of it. Just as Gu Shubai was about to speak up, his eyes turned to Gu Jiugu then quickly looked away. Recently, Gu Jiugu had been in communication with Yin Jiyao. If he could find out about the secret that Yin Yan and Yin Shuo were holding so dear, they might be able to turn the tide and become proactive rather than passive. Like that, they would not need to worry about opposition from Yin Shuo. Looking at it like this, there was only one choice. Gu Hanamo cupped his hands and said, Father, allow son to go. Chapter 230 Cover up today's humiliation, Part 2. This was precisely what Gu Huaijiang intended. Gu Shubai said, Father, ever since father had you escort eldest sister and Yunyan back to Jinling, father has thought about a number of things. You are the eldest son. If anything happened in the manner that father was unable to handle, it was sure to be you who handled it. This has been unfair to you and your younger brothers. If Gu Shubai truly died last time in Changzhou, what would he do? He asked himself this question countless times. In the end, he changed his way of thinking. This time, he did not choose Gu Shubai. On the other side, Gu Shubai was a little unaccustomed to this. Eldest brother, I will be coming of age next year. I am not much younger than you and second brother. Gu Hanemo pushed on. By the time that eldest brother and second brother were 19, you had both taken on important tasks. It would not do to keep treating me the same way as the three younger ones and keep me hidden behind eldest brother, right? Gu Hanemo had learned how to persuade others. Ever since Tian Shu left, he had become much gentler. Who knew if it was because he now had Tian Shu as a friend, or it was because of the matter concerning Gu Wenqing and Yu Guan, but he was no longer as extreme as before. Gu Wenqing stood up and smiled, saying, "Third brother is looking down on us. You getting a chance is one thing, but why is it that we have to hide behind eldest brother?" That's right, that's right. Third brother is looking down on us. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi waved their fists. They were no longer as afraid of Gu Hanemo. Gu Hanemo glanced sideways at the two. Then how about you two take my place? The pair of fists slowly pulled back. Watching the brothers argue and tease each other, Gu Huaijiang felt comforted. Then we'll go with that. Hanemo, before setting out, father will hand the secret orders from His Majesty to you. It's just that you won't be able to bring too many people. You will need to keep a low profile to keep this trip secret. You will need to be more careful. Secret orders. Gu Shubai's eyebrow slightly twitched and suddenly knew what to do with Qi Ting. In the study of the Prime Minister's manor, the floor was covered in shattered porcelain. Standing outside were Imperial Censor Xia and Imperial Censor Dong. They had changed out of their court clothes and were about to step inside but were given a fright by the sound of shattering porcelain. Not long after the servant went inside to report, Yin Shuo personally came out to receive them. Lord Imperial Censors. Prime Minister Yin. After their greetings, Yin Shuo pointed outside. The new servant in the study is clumsy and broke quite a bit of porcelain. It didn't scare my lords, did it? Let's go to the front hall to speak. No matter how clumsy the servant was, they should not have broken that much porcelain, right? Moreover, they did not hear the sound of anyone apologizing come from inside. The two glanced at the outer study with dark looks. The door was closed tight, so the situation inside could not be seen. The front hall, we came here in secret, so it would be best if Prime Minister did not allow too many people to know about this. Don't worry. My Prime Minister's manor does not have much, but the servants are tight-lipped. Sure enough, the two accepted his way of handling things. Today's visit was just to ask Prime Minister one question. Although we agreed to not reveal that it was Prime Minister who gave us the report, now that the report has been proven to be fake, may we ask how exactly Prime Minister ended up with the report? Military secrets were not things that normal people could get their hands on. Moreover, this was from Gu Huaijiang to the Gu family's army. They were famous for their strict discipline. It has indeed been proven to be fake, but do my lords not want to know what order Marquis Gu sent to the border? That, the two exchanged a glance then quickly said, hasn't Lord Marquis Gu already explained this matter to His Majesty? Didn't His Majesty also say that Lord Marquis Gu is absolutely loyal? Yin Shuo subconsciously clenched his fist, blood oozing from the back of his hand where he had been cut by the shattered porcelain. His Majesty believes in his loyalty, but I do not. My lords, just wait and see. I will find evidence to prove it. He had been careless this time and fell for Gu Huaijiang plot. But he did not believe that Gu Huaijiang would go through all of that trouble just to send some meaningless order to the border. He would definitely get to the bottom of this. He would definitely cover up the humiliation that he had suffered. Chapter 231 Beauty Under the Moonlight, Part 3. The crescent moon hung in the night sky, and someone leaned back to watch the moon atop a small building in a garden. A pink embroidered shoe swayed back and forth from the tip of an exquisitely shaped foot. A gust of wind blew, and the trees swayed. The girl with her legs raised immediately brought her legs together and looked around. Gu Shubai's unwavering figure remained atop the roof. Balanced on just one foot, he was as steady as Mount Tai. It seemed that Gu Shubai had perfectly learned the techniques that Tian Shu had taught them. After achieving mastery, he was even steadier than Tian Shu. You were the one who begged me to bring you up to the roof to view the moon, but now you're scared. He moved from roof tile to roof tile like a crane flying past some wetland, creating a number of ripples on the water. Was there any girl who was not afraid of the dark or of ghosts? Yu Fu was not really afraid of ghosts. She just noticed the trees sway with the wind, and it looked a bit like a ghoul had reached out with its hand. It seemed as if Gu Shubai knew what she was thinking, as he sat next to her and pointed at the trees shrouded in shadows. In truth, all of that is my hair. When the wind blows, it moves with it. It's not a ghost. He turned his head and showed Yu Fu his long hair that was partially tied up. Sure enough, it was moving with the wind. She reached out for the bottom of his hair, and the tips of his hair swirled around on the palm of her hand, tickling her and making her giggle. After looking between the hair and the trees for a while, she was no longer afraid. Eldest brother, your hair tie has gotten loose. I'll help you tie it up again. Gu Shubai said, you can't even tie up your own hair. I heard that when you first came to the capital, you had a granny come and tie it up for you. Are you sure that you know how to use a hair tie? Though he said this, he did not hesitate in the slightest, handing the hair tie to Yu Fu. Yu Fu nodded vigorously and suddenly realized that he had his back to her and could not see. I do. Did eldest brother not see a few days ago? The fur near Pang Zhou's ears got too long and was getting into its food bowl. I was the one who tied it up. She was actually comparing Pang Zhou's fur to his hair. Gu Shubai laughed at the comparison. It turns out that our Yu Fu was so amazing. I will need to learn how to tie up Pang Zhou's fur when I get the chance. Yu Fu put a bit of strength into her hands and brought the hair together. What will eldest brother learn this for? I'll learn it to tie up your hair. Yu Fu's hand stopped, and a sudden gust of wind blew past and pulled the hair tie from his hair, scattering his long and inky black hair. He turned his head, and half of his face was obscured by his hair, giving him an even gentler appearance. Holding the white hair tie, Yu Fu looked on and was at a complete loss. Under the brilliant moonlight, your beauty remains unmatched. With your elegant figure, feelings of concern quietly stir. She had always thought that those two lines from the poem were describing the beauty of a woman, but after today. Of the many people in the world, they probably fit nobody other than Gu Shubai. Give it to me. Yu Fu looked at him in a daze and only understood what he meant after a brief pause. Oh, here, Gu Shubai smiled and received his hair tie before casually placing it on the back of his neck. Not long later, the two saw a middle-aged man walk out under the moonlight, sneakily heading toward a certain courtyard. That happened to be the direction of the manor's private prison. Gu Shubai handed a pouch to Yu Fu. She had noticed the smell of candy since much earlier, casually plucking out a piece and placing it in her mouth. Eldest brother, you have one too. Yu Fu kept her eyes on Qi Zhou's parting figure and casually brought a piece of candy up to his mouth. The latter looked at Qi Zhou then opened his mouth. Now that Qi Zhou had gone to visit the prison, what would they do? Gu Shubai crossed his arms in front of his chest and casually leaned back on the roof. We wait. Yu Fu's mind wandered and suddenly saw a colorful cherry blossom below. She tugged on the corner of his clothes. Eldest brother, I want a cherry blossom. She wanted a cherry blossom. He sat up straight and followed Yu Fu's gaze, immediately understanding the situation. She wanted to use this to treat him like an errand boy and have him fetch her some cherry blossom. Very well, but I don't know which one you want. How about I bring you along to pick one? Before Yu Fu could react, he picked her up, and the two soared into the air. Their figures soared through the night sky, floating like leaves in autumn and slowly landing on a branch. The tree's branches were so thin, so how could they bear the weight of two people? Moreover, one of them was someone who knew nothing about how to adjust their weight. Although she was a young and thin girl, her weight was still a real concern. Yu Fu was so afraid that she did not dare look down. She could only hug him tightly. Chapter 232 Last Meal, Part 4. The sound of a girl crying came from inside the prison. The private prison in Marquis Gu's manor was not large, and it was very rarely used to imprison anyone. As a result, it was very empty. This happened to be when the night was darkest and the wind fiercest. This made the girl's cries sound even more ghostly. Tinger, don't cry. Chi Zhou placed the food basket on the table, and the fragrance of the food spread. They were all of the foods that Chi Ting liked eating. He pulled out some chopsticks and was about to place them on the table, but after a bit of thought, he did not feel at ease and simply placed them on the bowl. Go ahead and eat. Dad came to see you in secret. If we're discovered, you won't be able to eat. Dad. The crying came to an abrupt end, as Chi Zhou quickly covered up Chi Ting's mouth when she cried out. Keep it down. It was hard for Dad to come and see you. If you attract any attention, it would be terrible. Chi Ting cried for a little longer before finally calming down. Dad, have things gotten that bad for us? Grandfather is someone who has worked in this manor for his entire life. Even Lord Marquis gives him a bit of face. Although I came back under someone else's direction, I did not have a chance to sell out Lord Marquis. Why have I been locked up here for over a month? Chi Zhou's heart also ached for his daughter, handing the chopsticks to her. Eat first, eat first. During her time in prison, Chi Ting was given very little to eat. Upon seeing all of the meat and fish, she began wolfing it down. Don't blame Lord Marquis. Naturally, Lord Marquis will give your grandfather a bit of face, but there is a difference between master and servant. The more he gives him face, the less he needs to do it in the future. This time, your grandfather did not speak up for you at all. What? Chi Ting was sullen. Is he still my grandfather or not? Does he want me to die here? What a ferocious old man. Chi Zhou angrily glared at her. With you doing such a dreadful thing, why did you not consider whether or not your grandfather and I could be implicated? You're the one with a ferocious mind. Dad, I didn't. How could I implicate you and grandfather? Prime Minister Yin said that as long as I helped him, he would definitely protect our family and make us wealthy. Moonlight entered the room through a small window, and the bars in the window created a shadow that made her expression look very twisted. Chi Zhou looked at her face in shock, as the feelings of grief were made apparent on his brow. Dad, what's wrong? It's nothing. Dad was just thinking that regardless of what you did, Lord Marquis would not implicate me or your grandfather. After all, we have served the manor for many decades, but you are different. A bad feeling filled Chi Ting. She looked at the delicious foods placed on the table and recalled that this was the first time that Chi Zhou had come to visit her since her imprisonment. He even brought such delicious food with him. Her entire body shuddered. Dad, this shouldn't be a last meal, right? Chi Zhou remained silent and raised his head to look at her. Dad! Save me! Save me! I don't want to die. After a long while, Qi Zhou tidied up the leftovers on the table and placed them back into the basket, returning the table to the same state that it had been in when he first arrived. Qi Ting tightly hugged his arm. "Dad. There's no need to say anything else. Something has happened at the manor recently. Prime Minister Yin has too many people watching, and Lord Marquis is troubled by this the most. Third young sir will be going to the border shortly. This matter is now pressing, or he would not be forced to have you killed. If there is anything to blame, it would be you choosing to follow the wrong path. The matter has been taken care of. Eldest young sir, please be at ease." Gu Shubai spoke in a heavy voice. "Steward Qi, this time, it will depend on her choice. If she feels remorseful, we will consider the positions of you and the old steward and forgive her past misdeeds. If she wants to sell out third brother," he stopped there, as saying too much would just be hurtful. How could Qi Zhou not know? He bowed deeply. "Regardless of what she chooses, this servant will first thank eldest young sir for giving her this chance." Gu Shubai nodded, and the person carrying the food basket left in the direction that he had come from. He was both a loyal servant and a loving father. When the two came into conflict, loyalty won out. Yu Fu could not help but feel emotional. Marquis Gu's manor's servants really are loyal. Only a righteous and noble official like the head general is able to have such loyal servants. Gu Shubai laughed and said, "Loyalty is a quality that is inherited most easily. Everyone in the Gu family army reveres father's character. This is also true of the old steward and Steward Qi. Unfortunately, they did not do a good job of raising their daughter." Yu Fu looked at him in confusion. Eldest brother means to say that Qi Ting is certain to not feel remorse. Chapter 233 Going to Yushan Building Together, Part 5. Gu Hanamo led a group of 20 soldiers and left the manor. Leaving on fast horses, they maintained a low profile. Looking carefully, they still had their backs straight and carried themselves in a manner unique to soldiers. The speed of the horses was also beyond what a normal horse could reach. Military horses were the best of the best and have seen all sorts of things on the battlefield. As a result, they were steadier than normal horses. Gu Hanmo's horse carried a white sack on its back that contained a variety of medicinal herbs. They were given to him by Yu Fu right before they set out. She said that they grew around the border region. She told him that he should order the soldiers to harvest some more. They should then be steeped in boiling water. First, summer was fast approaching, and it would help reduce the effects of the heat. Second, the people of Western Kun had already considered something as underhanded as poisoning Gu Huaijiang, thus there was a possibility that they would try again. If he was poisoned, it would be able to reduce the effects of the poison until a doctor could treat him. "Little Yu Fu, you're clearly an immortal practitioner of poison, but I feel that you are becoming more and more like an immortal practitioner of medicine. When will you check my pulse for me?" Gu Yi watched Gu Hanamo cheerfully load the sack of medicinal herbs onto his horse and felt that things were a little unfair. Yu Fu treated third brother so well, so why did she not give him any medicine? Yu Fu smirked. "I only know how to treat poisons and only have a basic understanding of other things. There are some things that I learned from the imperial physicians. If sixth brother does not dislike the idea, how about I check your pulse?" After Sun Qi left, Yu Fu no longer allowed the imperial physicians to address her as master. She was worried about attracting too much unnecessary attention. Those imperial physicians were reluctant to do so, fearing that she would push them out from being part of Immortals Valley's ranks. It was only after Yu Fu tried to provide all manners of explanations and reasonings that they were finally willing to relent. All right. Gu Yi extended his hand, and Yu Fu felt his pulse before bursting out in laughter. "What is it?" Seeing Gu Yi completely confused, Yu Fu smiled and said, "Sixth brother, what did you eat this morning?" "Just the usual." Some steamed buns and congee. Oh right, there was also this pastry. Little Mutu bought it outside for me. Yufu covered her mouth and had an enigmatic expression. Sixth brother should return to your courtyard. Don't ask why. You will know once you get back. Gu Yi did not know what to make of this, and Gu Xiang was also very curious, accompanying him back to their courtyard. Gu Wenqing was curious and asked, Yu Fu, what exactly is going on? Just as he said this, Gu Yi, who had not gotten very far, suddenly held his doubled over. Oh, my stomach really hurts. It hurts much. Let's quickly get back. Yu Fu helplessly said. Little Mutu's attempt to win favor backfired. The pastry that he bought was probably dirty, and sixth brother ended up with an upset stomach. Gu Wenqing could not stop himself from letting out a chuckle before giving up entirely and laughing. This is bad. This is really bad. Little Mutu is definitely doomed. I need to go and hold him back. After saying this, he chased after Gu Yi and Gu Xiang, heading toward their courtyard. Yu Fu had been planning to return to her room and happened to see Gu Jiugu walking out. During the past few days, he had been frequently going out to see Yin Jiyao. She knew about this. She had also heard Gu Wenqing say that Gu Jiugu and Yin Jiyao often met up at Yushan Building. Second brother, are you going to Yushan Building? That's right. Gu Jiugu laughed, and his brows slightly twitched. Is that the reason that you gave him that pile of medicine? Are you worried that Yin Shuo will try to deal with third brother in the same way that he tried to deal with eldest brother? Yu Fu did not speak. On their previous outing to save Gu Shubai in Changzhou, it was the two of them who had gone together. He understood just how worried Yu Fu had been. He gently tapped Yu Fu on the head. Don't worry. Yin Shuo wants to cause the collapse of Marquis Gu's manor in court. It's not something that can be done by simply killing someone. If it was eldest brother, he might try to commit to the assassination, but he won't do it with third brother. Why is it that he would do it if it was eldest brother but not if it's someone else? Could it be because eldest brother is the heir to Marquis Gu's manor? But even without this heir, Marquis Gu's manor had 5 other sons. There would no shortage of possible replacement heirs. This would not pose a threat to Marquis Gu's manor's lineage. Yu Fu was puzzled, which caused Gu Jiugu to freeze. In the end, she was still young and did not have a thorough understanding of romantic feelings. If not for that, she should have been able to tell that the reason that Yin Shuo wanted Gu Shubai's life was none other than her. Chapter 234 Love Rivals Meet, Part 1, Second Young Sir. Gu Jiugu arrived outside a private room on the 3rd floor, and a joyous voice came from inside. They had arranged to meet an hour before noon, and he himself was not late, so why had Yin Jiao come early? Normally, for the sake of considering feminine restraint, she would come later than Gu Jiugu. Yin Jiao came out to receive Gu Jiugu, a rarely seen look of joy shining through the reserved feminine bearing. Upon seeing the girl next to Gu Jiugu, that smile immediately froze. Princess. She bowed in salute, and she immediately became stiff. Yu Fu did not know about the relationship between her and Gu Jiugu and said with a smile, second brother's friend is my friend. Young Miss Yin, there's no need to be so courteous. It's fine to address me in the same way as before. There was nothing wrong with what she had said. Yu Fu had also said the same thing to Yu Guan. To Yin Jiao, however, this sounded a little unpleasant. His friends are your friends. You clearly rejected him, so why have you come with him to see me? Gu Jiugu said, this restaurant can be considered one of Yu Fu's businesses, and she wanted to come and take a look, so I decided to bring her along. Yu Fu heard that young Miss Yin and I had an arrangement, so she just came to greet you. She will be going to see Yu Guan and check up on some things. I fear that she will not have any time for us. So she just happened to be tagging along. Yin Jiao could not help but feel ashamed of her earlier thoughts. Many thanks, young Miss Yufu. Since that's the case, I will not get in the way of your main matters. Young Miss Yin, please take your time and try various dishes. Fourth brother said that Yu Guan put a great deal of effort into them. I will be leaving first. Second brother must take good care of young Miss Yin. Don't worry. Yao Lan helped Yu Fu down the stairs, and Yin Jiao watched her parting figure in a daze. She then looked over at Gu Jiugu. He did not appear to be heartbroken. He did not look like someone who had confessed and been rejected. What was going on? Was it that he did not like Yu Fu that much, to begin with, or was he being considerate of Gu Huaijiang and Gu Shubai's feelings and started thinking of Yu Fu as a little sister again? For a while, she could not figure it out. Gu Jiugu raised his hand. Young Miss Yin, let's go inside. Yu Fu descended the stairs and saw Yu Guan leading a woman holding a pipa inside. She looked extremely familiar. Prin. Young miss, you came. Yu Guan stepped forward first and cupped his hands. I have been looking forward to young miss' arrival. Previously, it had not been tidied up, so I did not dare to invite young miss. Now that things have gotten better, I have been looking forward to young miss' arrival. He had become a bit thinner but was in much better spirits. He was smiling more and had the bearing of a shopkeeper. While speaking, he turned to introduce Yu Fu. This is Miss Yao Yu, whom I have invited to come and perform. I heard that she was familiar with people from the manor and was skilled with the pipa. Miss Yao Yu, this is. Before he could finish speaking, Yao Yu stepped forward with her pipa and bowed. Greetings, Princess. Yu Guan was shocked and said, so Miss Yao Yu has met the young miss before. I previously met Miss Yao Yu with second brother. I also heard her play a song while riding a boat. It was quite pleasant. After that, I heard her play at West Lake, but I did not see her then. Yu Fu explained to Yu Guan and carefully observed Yao Yu. Her face was pale and looked sickly, but it was covered up with makeup. Miss, there's no need to be so distant. It's fine to just address me as you did before. Yao Yu nodded slightly. Compared to her previous tender demeanor, there was now much more anxiety. Yu Guan brought out Yushan Building's goods and financial records, carefully explaining all of them to Yu Fu. Yu Fu smiled but did not say anything. Listening to him talk, it was as if he was a completely different person from before. Where have you hidden Yu Guan? The Yu Guan that I know was not like this. Are you wearing a lifelike mask? Yu Guan was stunned before realizing that Yu Fu was joking. He was a little embarrassed. He said, young miss, don't make fun of me. If not for young miss coming up with the idea, and providing money and people to help me, how could Yushan Building do this well? This is young miss business. I am just helping young miss manage it and do not dare to claim credit. Not at all. Yu Fu said, this is your business. I only lent you all of those things. The money and people were provided by eldest brother. My name was also lent to you for the sake of business. As long as you promise me that you will not charge me when I come for a meal. While she joked, she cleanly separated herself from Yushan Building, allowing Yu Guan to truly become the owner. Yu Guan anxiously said, of course, this isn't just for young miss. If people from Marquis Gu's manor come, this would also be true. Right, I plan on changing my name. This name is an offense to young miss and is not suited to being used. There's no need. I have never worried about such things. Yu Fu spoke freely and heard the sound of the pipa come from the front, saying, come, let's go and watch Yao Yu's performance. Chapter 235 Mournful Song and Snapped String, Part 2. In the capital's love scene, Yao Yu was quite well known. Not only was it because of her skill with the pipa, but it was also because everyone knew that she was someone protected by Gu Jiugu. But recently, they had heard that Gu Jiugu had cut ties with her, and she had even shut herself in and fallen ill over that. Looking at her today, though she was a bit thinner, she did not look like she had been so ill that she could not get up. The sound of the pipa rose with the sound of a mournful tune, and Yu Guan immediately furrowed his brow. Yu Fu was walking in front and turned back to say, "What's wrong? I clearly told Miss Yao Yu to play a joyous song, so why has she played such a sad song?" Yu Guan did not understand pipa's songs and could only hear the sadness. He did not recognize what song this was, but Yu Fu could tell that it was longing. She had played it before at West Lake. Inside the private room on the 3rd floor, the window that was open just a crack was pushed open even more. The elegant and slender hand of a female appeared behind the window, and Yin Jiao poked her head out to look at the girl playing the pipa below. Yao Yu, she had heard this name before. She was Gu Zhouge's confidante. She used to be. Holding the pipa on her lap, she sat on the stage with a large crowd gathered around, completely entranced by the sound of her pipa. The crowd gathered around and cheered endlessly. However, there was not the slightest hint of a smile on her face. Thin, weak, anxious, and pale from sickness. Yin Jiao looked at Yao Yu and felt as if she was looking at a past version of herself. She had a very good understanding of how Yao Yu felt. "Second young sir, she came for you." Yin Jiao did not close the window. She just turned her head to look at Gu Jiugu, and the latter subconsciously picked up a cup of wine and brought it to his lips before putting it back down. In the end, he picked up a cup of tea. "You're overthinking it. It must be that Yu Guan knew that she has some connection to Marquis Gu's manor, thus he invited her to come and perform. Yushan Building and Marquis Gu's manor are connected in many ways. That's why Yao Yu was willing to do this for him. This was a personal matter between Yu Guan and Yao Yu. It was completely unrelated to him. Yin Jiao, however, pointed down, "Come here and take a look. You will understand." Below, Yu Fu and Yu Guan chose to sit in the front row, casually sitting with the rest of the crowd. Gu Jiugu walked over and looked in the direction that Yin Jiao was pointing. Was that Yao Yu? She was wearing a large spring dress and had bright red lipstick on. Others might not be able to tell that she had become thinner. Gu Jiugu knew better than anyone else. He furrowed his brow and did not know what he should say. Ji Yao really admires Miss Yao Yu's devoted love for second young sir. She reflected on herself. She did not share Yao Yu's deep affection, and she was burdened with a secret that she could not even share. Gu Jiugu did not pick up on the hidden meaning behind her words. A devoted love is only good if it's for the right person. I already explained things to her, but I don't know why she continues to insist on pursuing such a bitter path. In his mind, Yao Yu was not like this. She had been used by others before, suddenly appearing when everyone from Marquis Gu's manor was admiring West Lake. After that event, she quickly came to an understanding. She had always been understanding and knew that there would be no chance for the two of them to be together. That was why they remained friends and lived in the moment. Yin Jiao smiled bitterly, longing for you, but you remain in Chang'an. Second young sir, don't believe a woman's words. You say that you've talked it through and that she understands, but that does not mean that she truly could just give up. If a scholar falls in love, there may be hope of recovery. If a woman falls in love, they will never be able to escape. That's right, how about a more joyous song? The spring atmosphere outside is quite nice, so how about a song about the spring wind? The song came to an end, and Yao Yu slightly looked up before starting to play once more. In an instant, Yu Guan's expression turned very ugly. He was extremely familiar with this song. Was this not Peony Pavilion, which he frequently performed? This was a song of great sorrow. It was even more emotional than longing, adding in the sorrow of parting and never meeting again. In an instant, the guests down below started causing a stir. What's going on? Why are you playing a song about someone dying? You aren't letting us enjoy our meals. Hong Zui and Lu Xiu hastily came in from the backyard and did their best to placate the angry guests. On the stage, Yao Yu's eyes did not wander. It was as if she was the only person in her world, as her fingers continued to dance, the melancholic sound filling the air. Twang, with the mournful sound of a string snapping, the guests suddenly fell quiet and looked up at the stage. Bright red drops of blood were dripping from the tips of Yao Yu's elegant fingers. Chapter 236 Even if I am against the world, I will bravely advance. Part 3. The situation Yushan building was quite polarized. The lower floors were warm and toasty, while the upper floors were chilly. There were quite a few unhappy guests because of the song that Yao Yu had just played. Thus Yu Guan gave every table a plate of the new signature dish. This made everyone quite happy. It was not a result of getting something for free. Instead, it was a result of Yushan Building's new signature dish not yet being available to the general public. For them to have been able to try it first, it's natural that they would be happy. The situation on the third floor was quite bad. At an old-fashioned square table, there were 4 people seated. Yu Fu sat across from Gu Jiugu with Yin Jiyao to her left and Yao Yu to her right. Fortunately, Yu Guan was busy taking care of the guests below. If he was present, he would definitely have wanted to voice his grievances. In truth, Yu Fu really wanted to do the same right now. As soon as she opened her mouth, the other 3 turned to look at her. I'm a little hungry, but the 3 of you don't seem to be in the mood to eat. I will go down and eat something before coming back. I won't get in the way of your conversation. Just as she stood up, the door was pushed open, and Yu Guan personally arrived with the manager to deliver some food. Come, my dear noble guests. Please try the new signature dish that I tasked the chef with developing. If everyone could provide their opinions, that would be even better. Yu Guan single-mindedly spoke while placing the dishes on the table, as Yu Fu shot a glare at him. If not for his sudden appearance, she would have successfully gotten away. Yu Guan, who was suddenly glared at for no valid reason, suddenly realized what sort of atmosphere existed inside the room. Please take your time enjoying them. If you need anything, just send someone to call me. I will be going first. Yu Guan hastily left, heartlessly abandoning Yu Fu. The 4 looked around awkwardly. This was the first time in Yu Fu's life that she had ever encountered such an awkward situation and did not know what to do. She lowered her head and fiddled with her nails, pretending to not exist. Yu Fu, didn't you say that you were hungry? Have some soup to warm your belly. Gu Jiugu suddenly spoke up and picked up the soup ladle from the table and ladled some soup for Yu Fu. The porcelain bowl was brought over to Yu Fu, but she did not dare receive it. Of the 3 girls present, the other 2 girls had special feelings for Gu Jiugu, yet he only ladled soup for her. Did he think that things were not messy enough? Yu Fu picked up her chopsticks and picked up some stir-fried lily. I'm not that thirsty. Ha. Gu Jiugu did not pull back his hand and just looked at her. The other 2 girls were also looking closely at her. Yu Fu had no choice but to receive the bowl but hesitantly glanced at Yin Jiyao and Yao Yu while doing so. In the end, she pushed the bowl of soup over to Yao Yu. Miss Yao Yu, you still haven't recovered from your illness, and you have gotten so thin. Drink a bit of soup to fill your stomach a little and don't starve yourself. She then quickly ladled some more soup and brought it over to Yin Jiyao. Young Miss Yin has also become extremely thin. Quickly eat something and don't just starve yourself. Yu Fu was not fat, and her body had become more slender since growing taller. Her figure was now just right. Compared to the two thin and fragile-looking girls, she did not look thin at all. That was why she did her best to serve the other two first. Gu Jiugu helplessly picked up the ladle once more and ladled another bowl for Yu Fu. You are also extremely thin. Eat and stop giving way to others. The two girls quickly exchanged a look. This was bad. She was the only one to personally receive a bowl of soup from Gu Jiugu. She had once again become the leader. Yu Fu has a sturdy body. It's fine for her to drink a bit faster. Yu Fu, have you finished? If you have, cough. Yao Yu suddenly covered her mouth and started coughing, her face alternating between red and white. With her other hand, she held her chest, and she looked to be in a lot of pain. Yao Yu. Gu Jiugu saw this and stepped forward, but Yao Yu waved her hand. It's fine. I just caught a bit of a cold. If you were able to let go just a little, things would not be this bad. I have already said everything that needs to be said to make things clear, so why are you still so obsessed? She had deliberately played the sorrowful song today, and Gu Jiugu was able to hear the despair in her song. She clearly knew that her closest confidant would be able to hear her despair. Tears appeared in Yao Yu's eyes, as she looked over at Yin Jiao. I will obsess over what I want. There's no need for second young sir to worry about it. When it comes to love, it occurs as naturally as people live and die. Even in the face of millions of people, I will bravely press on. Yin Jiao's heart trembled, and a feeling that never existed before welled up. She knew that Yu Fu had no feelings for Gu Jiugu, and Gu Jiugu would eventually give up on his sister-in-law, but it was different with Yao Yu. When it came to such an infatuated girl, who wholeheartedly loved Gu Jiugu, would he really be able to remain aloof? Chapter 237 Tangled for Life, Part 4, Doctor, I'll trouble you with treating her. You must be sure to cure her. If there are any medicines that you need, just go to Yushan Building and look for shopkeeper Yu Guan. After escorting Yao Yu back to her small residence and personally seeking out a doctor to treat her, Gu Jiugu finally felt at ease. Yao Yu lay in bed, as a maidservant wiped her face. After her makeup was washed off, her pale face made her look particularly pitiful. Gu Jiugu's heart trembled. He did not have any romantic feelings for her. He only thought of her as a confidant, but he felt quite saddened from seeing her sick. The doctor replied, Young sir, don't worry. This girl only caught a cold. There aren't any major problems. It's just that she's been sick for a long time that her condition looks so horrifying. She will definitely recover from her illness after a month of treatment. Thank you, doctor. Gu Jiugu helped tuck in a corner of her blanket. Take care and properly recover from this illness and don't think about too much. If you're lacking anything, just have the maidservant fetch it for you. I will take care of things with Yu Guan, so there's no need to feel embarrassed. Yao Yu silently nodded, then reached up to point toward the window and said, Second young sir should go. Young Miss Yin is waiting for you below. Gu Jiugu's brow twitched, and he walked over to the window. Sure enough, he saw Yin Jiao standing downstairs with her maidservant. The daughter of a noble family even dared to come to a place where many people gathered in a chaotic mess. How did you know that she was below? I had a feeling. Yao Yu placed her hand on her chest and faintly smiled. It seems that my intuition is quite good. Gu Jiugu walked down the stairs. Yin Jiao was growing frantic from the weight, and it was as if she had seen her savior when she saw him. Yes, a savior. For the first time, she realized just how heartbroken she would feel if Gu Jiugu ended up with some other girl. Second young sir. What have you come here for? It's almost dark. Are you not afraid of something happening? She was immediately given a lecture when they met up. More and more, he stopped treating her as less of a stranger. Yin Jiao did not get angry. Instead, she smiled, I have something very important to tell you. I have to tell you today, and I don't want to wait even a moment. Something very important. Gu Jiugu seemed to realize what it was. Let's not stand here. Let's go and find someplace to sit. At the window on the second floor, Yao Yu watched the two people below depart. She smiled weakly, I also have a feeling that you two will be entangled for a lifetime. Returning to the manor, Gu Shubai and Yu Fu came out to meet him. Just looking at his face, Yu Fu knew that her guess had been correct. The atmosphere in the private room was too weird. Yao Yu's collapse pushed the situation to the limit. Yin Jiao could not sit still after seeing Gu Jiugu carry Yao Yu away. She watched from the third-floor window, and just after Gu Jiugu left, she immediately followed. These three really were stuck in an unfortunate cycle. Second brother, is Yao Yu alright? Gu Jiugu sighed, eldest brother, don't think of her as being so innocent. Do you know why Yin Shuo allowed her to meet me so often? At first, I thought that he just wanted to use this opportunity to confuse us by having her be friendly. It was only after today, when Yin Jiao told me the truth, that I found out that she was being sent out by Yin Shuo as a chess piece. What? She even told you that? Gu Jiugu looked at Gu Shubai in disbelief, eldest brother already knew this. It was just a suspicion. It can't be considered knowing it. You have met her so many times. Could it be that you never had any suspicions? It was not that Gu Jiugu did not have his suspicions. It was that he was bewildered by Yin Jiao's sincerity. More importantly, her coming clean today was enough to counteract the deception. Father, eldest brother, do you know what Yin Shuo wanted her to find out from me? Gu Jiugu's gaze turned to Yu Fu, and everything immediately became clear. Yin Jiao had been ordered by her father and brother to probe Gu Jiugu about Yu Fu's identity, and Gu Jiugu had gotten close to Yin Jiao to learn about the identity of her birth mother. The two approached each other with their own goals in mind, but they treated each other sincerely. Yu Fu suddenly recalled what Gu Jiugu had said before they went out. He said that nothing would happen to third brother, but if it was eldest brother, Yin Shuo would want to take his life. Could it be that the previous attempted assassination in Changzhou was also because of her? Chapter 238 Routine Investigation, Part 5, Third Young Sir, there is some shade here. How about we stop here to rest? The group led by Gu Hanamo rode west without rest until they arrived at the Lesser Zhu Pass, near Zhuguan. It was then that the soldiers were unable to continue on. The spring sun was quite warm, and they were soaked in sweat from riding this entire time. Their clothes were thoroughly soaked from their sweat. Seeing a small patch of shade provided by the small forest, they were extremely eager to stop and get a drink of water to cool down. Gu Hanamo brought his hand up to provide shade for his eyes and carefully looked around the small forest. There were no other places to rest, thus he said, "All right, but do not enter the forest. We will rest out the forest's outskirts." Up to their arrival at the Lesser Zhu Pass, there had been no news from the border. It was clear that Western Kun had not made any movements, thus they were not in any rush. Gu Hanamo removed the bundle from his horse's back, boil these medicinal herbs, then add the brewed result to our comrades' water skins. A soldier happily received it. Young Miss Yu Fu's medicines really are amazing. Whenever I take them, I feel very at ease. Even the comrades who hate drinking water like drinking this. Unlike the usual medicines that were bitter, these medicinal herbs tasted more like tea and had a stronger taste than water. Gu Hanamo smiled and said, "Yu Fu knows that we will be traveling a great distance and will be tired, thus she specially told me to bring them along. Quickly take them and boil them." The soldiers started a fire, but Gu Hanamo did not rest. Instead, he walked around the edge of the forest and looked around. There was nothing strange in the forest. They had already arrived at the Lesser Zhu Pass. Why was there still nothing abnormal? He seemed to have something on his mind, and he looked back in the direction that they had come from. He thought to himself that if that person did not act now, they would arrive at Zhuguan. The military camp at Zhuguan had 50,000 troops from the Gu family's army. Once they arrived, it would be too late for the enemy to act. A smoke trail rose from the fire, and a soldier stationed on Zhuguan's city wall saw the smoke in the distance. With a smile, he joked with his patrol partner, "Hey, look over at the forest. Is there someone roasting a pheasant?" The other person quietly scolded him, "Keep it down. All you think about is pheasant. Where would we even find pheasants around here? Just finding a rabbit to roast would be considered fortunate." He then turned to take a look, as a middle-aged man in court clothes quietly stood behind them and listened to their conversation. He had a large belly and wore a fourth-rank official's court cap with a sapphire inlaid in it. Was this not the prefect of Zhuguan? In Eastern Ling, regardless of whether it was the central region or anywhere else, military and political affairs were separate. This was especially true in border cities, where fighting was common. The military had even more power than civil officials. Even with this being the case, the two soldiers adhered to the rules and saluted the prefect. "Lord Prefect, what have you come here for?" The fat prefect maintained his smile. "This official just heard you two say that someone is roasting a pheasant in the forest. A few days earlier, the special envoy from Western Kun just passed through to escort their princess to the capital. As a city on the border, we must be extra vigilant. Go and take a look at who is roasting pheasants in the forest. Bring a few more people with you." The two soldiers looked at each other. It was a passerby stopping in the forest for a break. Who cared whether he was roasting a pheasant or a wild rabbit? How was it something for the soldiers to concern themselves with? Also, they were clearly coming from the middle of the country and not from Western Kun. What was he so nervous about? This was the first time that Gu Hanamo had come to the border on his own. In the past, he had come with his father and older brothers. He truly did not know who led the troops of the Lesser Zhu Pass. He did not have much of an impression of Suzhou, so he must not be of a very high rank. His gaze landed on the fire that had been used to boil the medicine and the faint trail of smoke that rose from it. Western Kun's special envoy just passed through here. It's possible that they are on high alert and came to investigate after seeing our numbers. Do not expose my identity when they come. Just say that we are part of the Gu family's army and must get to Zhuguan. Yes, third young sir. The handful of soldiers from Lesser Zhu Pass arrived and saw the group of 20 strong men seated under the shade of the trees. For a moment, they were afraid to step forward. Looking carefully, although they were wearing informal clothes, they had a military bearing. They had even more killing intent than they did. This sort of bearing made it immediately clear that they were part of the military. The soldiers who came to investigate cupped their hands. "We are soldiers stationed at the Lesser Zhu Pass and have come to investigate." "Who are you?" Chapter 239 Establish a Cabinet, Part 1. The report that was rushed from the Lesser Zhu Pass to the capital nearly caused Emperor Ning's heart to nearly stop. The princess for the political marriage had not yet arrived, yet Western Kun's people could no longer sit still. No, in that case, the report would come from Zhuguan, not Lesser Zhu Pass. After opening the report and carefully reading through it, he finally calmed down and felt a little embarrassed. The report had come from the prefect of Lesser Zhu Pass. It said that he had seen the third young sir of the Gu family lead 20 soldiers through the city and was heading toward Zhuguan. This came just as the situation between Western Kun and Eastern Ling was improving, so the prefect was worried that Gu Hanamo would provoke a war. Unfortunately, the prefect of Lesser Zhu Pass was not a part of the Gu family army. With great effort, He finally managed to have soldiers go to Zhuguan to bring the Gu family's general to negotiate. Gu Hanmo's identity could no longer be kept hidden. His guess was correct. Someone wanted to use this war to implicate Marquis Gu's manor. Even someone as insignificant as the lowly prefect of Lesser Zhu Pass had been bought. Take a look at this. Look at all of it. Gu Hanmo would provoke a war. When has someone from my Eastern Ling ever provoked a war? When has it ever not been started by Western Kuan? Emperor Ning angrily threw the report on the ground, unreasonable. Something so insignificant was rushed to the capital. We thought that Western Kuan had launched their invasion. It's just the third young sir of the Gu family leading a few soldiers to Zhuguan. Is this worth sending a report? Gu Hanmo went to Zhuguan. Why did the court not know anything about this? Everyone exchanged looks, then turned to look at Gu Huaijiang's reaction. The latter looked the same as usual. If the sky collapsed, Lord Marquis Gu would hold it up. He would never be flustered. Like everyone else, Yin Shuo looked over at Gu Huaijiang and slightly furrowed his brow. He then slowly looked away. Emperor Ning was not shocked, and Gu Huaijiang did not look shaken. Could it be they had agreed on sending Gu Hanmo to Zhuguan beforehand? Impossible. It was precisely because Gu Huaijiang had to secret send Gu Hanmo out that a spy like Qi Ting had to be executed with Qi Zhou bringing her last meal. Only then could she get a chance to come to him when the guards had been dismissed. Your Majesty, may I ask if the contents of your private discussion with Lord Marquis Gu about military affairs can be announced? Was the third young sir going to Zhuguan Lord Marquis Gu's order, or was it your Majesty's order? The officials paused for a moment, as some were wondering the same thing. Emperor Ning turned up his nose and snorted. Naturally, it was our order. Some people feel that Lord Marquis Gu has obtained a high rank and still covets more power, thus every move that he makes must be investigated. Even the lowly prefect of Lesser Zhu Pass dares to set his sights on Marquis Gu's manor, mobilizing so many people to report that Gu Hanmo went to Zhuguan. Whoever gave these instructions, step forward this instant. He fiercely slammed his desk, his chest rising and falling rapidly in anger. Eunuch Gao hastily stepped forward to help ease his breathing. He was the one who gave the order to Gu Hanmo. Yin Shuo hid his face in the shadows, as a murderous look flashed through his eyes. Very well, he had fallen for a scheme once more. Emperor Ning pushed his hand away. There's no need to worry about us. We have been treated by the deity of medicine. We don't dare say that we will live into our 80s like Mother Empress Dowager, but 60 or 70 should be fine. We won't die so soon. The officials in court dropped to their knees. They knew that Emperor Ning was furious, feeling that it was worth mentioning his mortality. The eldest prince and second prince also kneeled, their expressions particularly ugly. Regardless of who it was, neither hoped that Emperor Ning would live too long. The officials in court felt endangered and looked around at each other, wondering if they were the ones who tried to plot against Marquis Gu. They were also trying to distance themselves from this matter. Finally, someone turned their eyes on Yin Shuo. The previous prime minister was ousted because he had attempted to have Marquis Gu's heir assassinated. Could it be that Yin Shuo wanted to get revenge? No, though he and Yin Yen were father and son, their personalities were completely different. He should not be so foolish. Emperor Ning cleared his throat. We believe that the court's administration needs to be changed. We feel that a cabinet needs to be established to discuss politics. As for the positions, they shall temporarily remain the same. Yin Shuo suddenly raised his head. Since ancient times, the position of cabinet minister was on the same level as the prime minister. Dynasties that had cabinets did not have prime ministers. Emperor Ning announcing this was meant to reduce his power, and it expressed his displeasure with him. He no longer trusted him. Chapter 240. So what if others find out? Part 2. Eldest brother, how are things on third brother's side? Gu Shubai walked out from the outer study, and everyone was waiting for him to deliver the news. Don't worry. With his identity out in the open, it's obvious that the people of Lesser Zhu Pass won't dare to trouble him. Yin Shuo's plan this time was much smarter. Unfortunately, His Majesty will become more and more suspicious of him. Yu Fu said, I heard that His Majesty will be establishing a cabinet, so the position of Prime Minister will be getting removed soon, right? Gu Shubai laughed and said, for now, it won't be, but it won't take long. In the past, His Majesty has trusted him too much, granting him the position of Prime Minister at such a young age. He even engaged his beloved daughter to him. The greater the expectations, the greater the disappointment. Gu Yi crinkled his nose, right. He thinks that His Majesty is still suspicious of our Marquis Gu's manner and that he can just provoke us with any sort of trick. He is completely clueless. His Majesty looks at us completely differently now. After saying this, he delightedly looked at Yu Fu. Our manner helped raise a princess for His Majesty. Is this something that just any family can do? Whenever His Majesty sees Yu Fu, he will think of the deity of medicine, and when he thinks of the deity of medicine, he will remember who saved his life. How could he still be suspicious of us? You're the only one who has so much to say. Gu Xiang helplessly glanced at him. Don't mention His Majesty's life so lightly. Not even Yu Fu is acting smug, so what are you getting smug for? I am also Yu Fu's brother. If she won't act smug, I'll act smug for her. Is that not fine? Yu Fu snorted. His Majesty's gratitude is directed to Master and the head general. It's none of my business. I won't go acting smug. Hearing them joke around, Gu Shubai shook his head and laughed. Suddenly, he saw Qi Zhou standing nearby and looking over. Facing Gu Shubai's gaze, he cautiously retracted his gaze. Gu Shubai walked over to him on his own and saw that Qi Zhou had something that he was wanting to say. Steward Qi, do you want me to help you save Qi Ting? No, 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 this servant does not dare. Qi Zhou wrung his hands. When eldest young sir allowed this servant to see Qi Ting, this servant knew that whether she lived or died would depend on her own efforts. Since she so fervently refused to repent, this servant does not even dare to think of asking for her to be saved. If Qi Ting did not secretly sneak out of the prison on that night, even if she had simply run out and found a place to hide, he knew that Lord Marquis and the eldest young sir would not take her life. Yet she decided to run away to Yin Shuo with knowledge of Gu Hanemo heading to the border. She had completely cut off her own chance at survival. There was no saving someone who sought their own destruction. Gu Shubai thought for a moment, I will send some people to the Prime Minister's manor to keep an eye out. Once they discover Qi Ting, I will have them bring her back. When he mentioned bringing her back, it naturally meant that she would not be coming back alive. She would be dead. Qi Zhou closed his eyes. Many thanks, eldest young sir. It's just that my father is much too old, so I truly don't dare tell him about this. Eldest young sir, please don't tell him about this. After saying this, his knees bent, and he was about to kneel. Gu Shubai stopped him. Let's not talk about this. Qi Ting is Qi Ting, and you are you. You have loyally served the manor for many decades. Father has seen it, and I have seen it. Qi Zhou bowed deeply and briskly left. Pay your thought for a bit, young miss, don't worry. This servant feels that second young sir is not that sort of person. Though there are many girls who like him, he is not the type to be inconsistent with his love. Think about Miss Yao Yu. Even though she clearly knows that second young sir does not like her, she still insists on being around him. With that sickly appearance, this servant truly can't stand the sight of it. Père. Yin Jiao unhappily stopped her, you can't say it like that. Second young sir's friend is my friend. You must not talk about her behind her back. She should learn to be more magnanimous like Yu Fu. With Gu Zhouge's character, how could he like a vulgar and jealous girl? She must not get jealous of Yu Fu. On the contrary, she needed to treat her well. Yes, this servant recognizes her mistake. Père thought that Yin Jiao were romantic rivals and that they would find each other unpleasant. Who knew that her own young miss would be so magnanimous? In the end, I still feel a little uneasy. Père, come with me to the front study to see eldest brother. I heard that His Majesty plans to establish a cabinet, so eldest brother will surely be feeling uneasy. Chapter 241 Dying with Grievances, Part 3. In the darkness at dusk, it suddenly started raining. Yin Jiao led Père out of the backyard and stopped at a pavilion. The timing of this rain is no coincidence. Père, go back and fetch an umbrella. Yes, young miss, wait here. This servant will return immediately. The stone table and stone chair in the middle of the pavilion were cold. She reached out to feel it but decided to just watch the rain while remaining standing. The spring rain fell on the plantain leaves, while the cherries growing nearby glimmered from the rain, creating a beautiful scene. The cherries are red and plantains are green. The passage of time easily forgets the existence of man. I don't know who wrote this poem, but it is truly melancholic. She muttered to herself and suddenly saw someone moving behind the plantain trees. Two servants were carrying a bamboo rack, suspiciously looking all around. A white cloth covered the bamboo rack, and it was hard to tell what was inside, but her intuition told her that it was nothing good. Stop! The two people sneaking around were told to stop and were given a fright. It was only now that they noticed that someone was in the pavilion. Young miss. Yin Jiao had a frail figure, and it was getting dark, thus they did not immediately see her. If they had seen her earlier, they would not have chosen this route. This was not good. They had been discovered. Let me see what you're carrying. She walked out into the rain, and the two servants carrying the bamboo rack backed up. Young miss, the young master instructed us to do this. Don't pay it any mind. This is dirty, and it's not something you can look at. Young miss. Père returned with the umbrella. Seeing her standing in the rain, she hastily brought the umbrella over to provide cover. Young miss, be careful not to catch a cold. Huh, what's this? Yin Jiao pursed her lips, I don't know what this dirty thing is. Since they don't want to let me take a look, make sure you hide it properly. Since you've passed by in front of me, I absolutely want to see. While the two were not paying attention, she rushed forward and pulled away the white cloth. A girl in brightly colored clothes was laying beneath the cloth. Her face was blue and purple, and her eyes were wide. Blood slowly flowed from her nose and mouth. Ah! Père looked carefully then rushed to cover Yin Jiao's eyes. Young miss, don't look. It's a dead person. It was too late. She had already seen it. Yin Jiao was frightened by the sight of the corpse and turned pale, any sign of color quickly disappearing from her lips. In a panic, she retreated a few steps into the rain. Who is this? She, why would Yin Shuo want to kill this girl? It was a girl whom she had never seen before. She did not look like a maidservant from the manor. Who was she? The two servants hastily rushed to place the white cloth back in place. Young miss, this girl betrayed the young master. She's the one who angered the young master. Don't ask too much about this dirty thing. If the young master found out, we would be forced out. The two were also a little panicked. They were meant to secretly dispose of the corpse. Seeing that it was raining, They thought that they would not run into anyone, and that was why they chose to take a more direct path. Who knew that as soon as they came out, they would happen to run into Yin Jiao. The two hastily picked the bamboo rack back up and headed toward the manor's entrance. Yin Jiao stood in the rain in shock and did not recover for quite some time. For the first time in her life, she had seen a corpse, and the death had been so brutal. "Young miss, you've become completely soaked. How about we go back to your room first and change into some new clothes before looking for the young master?" "No, I can't go and look for eldest brother." The driver said a few words, then quickly returned to the carriage and left. He did not even notice that the vegetable vendor's cart had parked behind him. After he left, two people dressed as vegetable vendors walked forward and removed their hats. One was Yan Jing, and the other was Qi Zhou. "Steward Qi, go and take a look." The corpse wrapped in a white cloth was haphazardly laying on the ground. Qi Zhou wiped his eyes, as the tears mixed with the rain. He tried to take a step forward, as an indescribable look of sorrow appeared on his face. In the end, he stepped forward and lifted the white cloth. The corpse under the white cloth was bleeding from every opening on the head. She had died in an unclear manner. "It's her. It's my Tinger. Young Sir Yen, thank you for allowing father and daughter to see each other one last time." He wiped away the blood from Qi Ting's face, then carried her corpse over to the vegetable cart. Yan Jing gave him a hand, then saw the wild dogs watching from the side before disappearing back into the woods. "Steward Qi, don't be so courteous." The young general promised to give her a proper burial. "When the Qingming festival arrives in a few days, you will be able to burn some joss paper for her to express your fatherly love." He used food baskets to cover Qi Ting's corpse before turning the carriage around. Chapter 242 Two Joyous Events, Part 4. Emperor Ning initially intended to engage the princess sent for the political marriage by Western Kun to the eldest prince. The two countries had been at war for many years, and this was their first time establishing any diplomatic ties. Emperor Ning wanted to show his sincerity by having his eldest son shoulder the burden. After finding out Western Kun's strategy, he quickly lost interest. He haphazardly engaged the princess to a normal son of the imperial family. The special envoy from Western Kun did not seem to mind upon hearing this. This princess was born from a concubine, and Emperor Kun had her come for a political marriage for the sake of pretending to be friendly. After she was married, nobody cared whether she lived well or not. The princess from Western Kun is on her way and will arrive in the capital in 5 days' time. At that time, the imperial family will host a wedding banquet, so they decided to just have Yin Shua and Princess Danyang's marriage at the same time. It would be two joyous events happening at the same time. It had been 2 months since Emperor Ning recovered from his illness, and his attitude toward the eldest prince and the second prince was slowly returning to normal. It was just that there was not as much trust or doting as before. Today, he deliberately called the two of them to the imperial study to discuss this matter. The eldest prince smiled and said, "Father Emperor has always been smart about expenditures. Hosting both of the imperial family's weddings together will allow for great savings. Moreover, Danyang is no longer young. Father Emperor is wise." Wise, what horseshit. If not for Emperor Ning losing faith in Yin Shua, he would not have suddenly brought up establishing a cabinet. Would he still be considered wise? The second prince's expression was ugly. "Father Emperor, shouldn't Danyang's marriage be delayed? Western Kun's special envoy and princess are coming to the capital. When that happens, there will be many matters to handle. With Danyang's marriage also taking place, would there not be the possibility of our Easternling losing face? It would be nice it could be delayed. It would be best if it could delayed until Yin Shua lost his position as prime minister. Like this, there would be no need for Princess Danyang to marry him. Danyang was his only little sister, so she had to marry the minister with the most power. How could she be married off to Yin, an official who had lost the emperor's trust? The eldest prince's brow twitched slightly, as he playfully smiled. What's wrong, second brother? Before now, you very clearly wanted to rush Danyang's marriage. You seemed all too eager to have it happen as soon as possible. Now that Father Emperor wants her to get married, you are trying to delay it with all kinds of excuses. I truly can't understand it. Emperor Ning kept his head down and did not speak, listening to his two sons argue. The second prince hastily said, previously, there were few problems in court. Danyang is my younger sister, so it's natural that I would hope that she be able to get married to a worthy husband as soon as possible. But now that there is a situation in court, how can we neglect the country's important issues for the sake of familial feelings? Naturally, receiving Western Kuan's special envoy takes precedence. Has second brother not been listening to what Father Emperor has been saying? By conducting Danyang's wedding at the same time as Western Kuan's princess wedding, it will not just save on the costs. It will also give a bit of face to the princess from Western Kuan. For her to be able to have her wedding take place at the same time as our Eastern Ling's princess wedding is something that will elevate her. How can this be considered neglecting the country's important affairs? Eldest brother, those words. Enough, everyone shut up. Emperor Ning lifted his head and unhappily furrowed his brow. Danyang is our daughter and your younger sister. That's why we sought you to discuss her marriage. It's not for the sake of allowing you two to argue to no end. Qingji, are you looking to place emphasis on the connection with Western Kuan, or are you looking down on Yin Shua as a brother-in-law? The second prince froze, then quickly cupped his hands. Father Emperor has misunderstood. Son did not have such intentions. Prime Minister Yin is a young talent that is hard to find. How could Son possibly look down on him? The second prince instinctively refuted it, then spoke after thinking for a moment. Son did not just send gifts to Prime Minister Yin. Son also sent gifts to others, for example, Sister Yufu. Initially, Son wanted to send Father Emperor some gifts, but Father Emperor has not wanted to see us during this past little while, thus Son did not come. There are also gifts for eldest brother. I will have someone send them to the eldest prince's manor later. Oh. There's also something for me. The eldest prince laughed and said, second brother has always been generous with his gifts, unlike my poor maternal family, which is often strapped for money. But why is second brother wantonly sending out gifts to everyone? The second prince straightened his back and also smiled, saying, I have not seen Father Emperor much during this past little while, thus I have been reflecting on whether or not I have done anything wrong to make Father Emperor unhappy. I thought long and hard and felt that my usual actions are harsh and merciless. That's why I started giving out gifts to everyone. It was to make up for my past mistakes. He spoke as if he had attained enlightenment, and there were no holes in his story. For a while, the eldest prince did not know how to respond and simply let out a dry laugh. Emperor Ning nodded his head. For you to be able to realize where you are lacking, we are very pleased. Yin Shua is your brother-in-law, and Yu Fu is your younger sister in name. If you can get a little closer, we can feel at ease. Then things will be set like this. The weddings for Danyang and Western Kuan's princess will be held together and will take place in half a month's time. One is a princess marrying to solidify relations, while the other is your little sister. Neither of you must slack off. Both of you will go to the Board of Rites to help out. The corner of the eldest prince's eyes squinted at the second prince, as he cupped his hands and smiled. Yes, Father Emperor. Chapter 243 Deal with the Spy, Part 5. Yin Shua's position as Prime Minister is something that can be removed in an instant, so why must I still marry him? Princess Danyang stood up in anger, pointing at the second prince. You clearly know whom it is I love. yet you still want to sacrifice my happiness to win over Inshuo. Very well, if sacrificing my happiness means that you will succeed, I am fine with it. But you need to look at your own situation. Father Emperor announced that he would be establishing a cabinet in front of everyone. Do you think that the smarter ones are unable to realize that Inshuo has lost Father Emperor's favor? The second prince pulled her back to her seat. Shush, keep your voice down. He looked around outside the window and found that only Diener, Princess Danyang's confidant, was standing guard outside. Could it be that I can't tell that Inshuo has lost Father Emperor's favor? But Father Emperor insists on marrying you to him. Even the date has been set. Father Emperor suspects that the matter of targeting Marquis Gu's manor might be related to Inshuo, but there is no evidence. How can he possibly change the marriage that he himself decided on? Father Emperor does not have evidence but wants to reduce Inshuo's influence in court. That's why I sent him those gifts to comfort him. Like this, after the cabinet is established, and the prime minister's position is rendered obsolete, nobody will say that Father Emperor is harsh and without mercy. Father Emperor really planned things out well. But what about me? Do I need to be the unlucky one who marries someone who is about to lose their influence? Before a girl gets married, she is tied to her father. Once she gets married, she is tied to her husband. Presently, all of her glory was a result of her father being the emperor of Eastern Ling. In the future, if her husband was someone without power or influence, others would not look up to her. She would be in an even worse situation than the young misses from normal noble families. No, she did not want that. Since she had spent one day as a princess born of the Empress, she would always live a high and noble life. Danyang, calm down a little. Inshuo's current situation is indeed quite bad, but you need to consider your brother's situation too. Right now, only with you obediently marrying Inshuo will Father Emperor not suspect me of creating a supportive faction to pursue my wishes. You must know that it was you who told me to bring up establishing a crown prince when Father Emperor was severely ill last time. Second brother, what do you mean by that? I did it with you in mind. Now, you want to place the blame for losing favor with Father Emperor on me. Moreover, you're not the only one to lose favor. Hasn't Ning Yizhao also lost favor? So how can you place the blame on me? The second prince suddenly fell silent. He thought for a long time, then furrowed his brow and said, I always felt that there was something strange about that. How did Father Emperor's illness get so bad? The deity of medicine refused to reveal what his condition was after treating him. Think about it. If it was just an illness, why would the deity of medicine refuse to say anything? Hearing him say this, Princess Danyang also remembered something. I remember that the deity of medicine said that he did not want to get involved in Eastern Ling's court affairs. When it came to Father Emperor's illness, nobody was allowed to ask him anything. That is to say, Father Emperor's illness was related to court affairs. The siblings exchanged a look and instantly reached a silent agreement. At that time, Imperial Consort Xian was the one who stayed by Father Emperor's side every day. She even used her status in the Imperial Harem to prevent other members of the Imperial Harem from going to visit Father Emperor. This was also to say that it was very likely that Imperial Consort Xian had done something to make Emperor Ning's condition worsen. Princess Danyang shook her head. If it was Ning Yizhao and Imperial Consort Xian working together in this, what was their goal? Could it be that they knew that Father Emperor was going to establish you as the crown prince, thus they decided to try and do something to take Father Emperor's life? No, this was clearly something that only Marquis Gu's manor and we knew. The second prince had not thought about Marquis Gu's manor for quite some time. It can't be them. Although I also do not like the idea of Marquis Gu wielding so much military power, even if he was biased toward Ning Yizhao, they would not work together to try and kill Father Emperor. Have you forgotten? The reason that the deity of medicine was willing to treat Father Emperor is that Marquis Gu kneeled. If Marquis Gu's manor was not responsible for the leak, that would mean, of the people in the palace who would plan to spy and had the ability to do so, aside from Imperial Consort Xian, who else was there? Princess Danyang sneered, very well, to actually dare to eavesdrop on what second brother and I were talking about. I wonder how your master gave you the nerve to do this. I can't be bothered to question her. Send her to Eunuch Gao to be interrogated. I want to see if she'll confess or not. Yes. The Imperial guards dragged her off, and Princess Danyang gave Diener a look. You go with them and explain the situation to Eunuch Gao. Ask that he be especially thorough. Yes, this servant understands. Watching them leave, the second prince said, why send her to Eunuch Gao to be interrogated? When a palace servant does something wrong, there is a board to deal with them. Why bother telling old Eunuch Gao? Also, if Eunuch Gao tells Father Emperor about all of the complaints that you voiced earlier, how could that do any good? Second brother, do you think that my complaints will make Father Emperor angry, or do you think that Imperial Consort Xian planting a spy in my palace will make Father Emperor angry? This is especially true once Father Emperor knows that Imperial Consort Xian spied on the matter of establishing a crown prince. Chapter 244 Half of a Mandarin Duck, Part 1. In Qinghua Palace, Imperial Consort Xian sat next to the window and worked on an embroidery. The embroidery was a lifelike depiction of a mandarin duck. Mu Jin walked over with some colored thread. Which type of silk thread did your highness want? This servant found many types of silk thread in the warehouse and could not tell which one it was that you wanted. She simply brought all of the silk thread over to Imperial Consort Xian, and Imperial Consort Xian took a look at what she brought. It's this one, but it's been left sitting for a long time. The color is not too vibrant. Go and see if there is any new thread. If there isn't, send someone to request some more. Yes, this servant will immediately send someone out. Your Highness, don't rush with embroidering the mandarin duck. How about embroidering the ripples in the water first? When you finish, the new thread will have arrived. Imperial Consort Xian scolded her, then why haven't you gone yet? Wasting your time here. Mu Jin retreated with a smile. She knew that Imperial Consort Xian was embroidering a pouch for Emperor Ning and was planning to fill it with fragrances for him during the Dragon Boat Festival. Between Emperor and Consort, their ages added up to almost 100, yet Imperial Consort Xian was still using such a loving image as mandarin ducks. It was evident just how loving their relationship was. After a long period of time, Imperial Consort Xian heard the sound of Mu Jin depart then return. Did you bring it? The feathers on the mandarin duck's torso must use this sort of golden silk thread. Other golden threads are too plain. The color just isn't right. Mu Jin did not make a sound. Imperial Consort Xian had her head down, and her neck was feeling sore. Lifting her head, she rubbed her neck and found that the person who had come was not Mu Jin. Your Majesty. Why have you suddenly come? Emperor Ning stood alone at the entrance with only Eunuch Gao behind him. He did not bring a single extra person with him. Imperial Consort Xian was a little flustered, but she forced herself to smile and receive him. Emperor Ning's gaze was inquisitive. We had nothing better to do and came to see what our beloved Imperial Consort was doing. It's nothing much. I was just in the middle of embroidering a pouch. When the Dragon Boat Festival comes around, I would fill it with some herbs to ward off poisons and ill omens. Ward off poisons and ill omens. When Emperor Ning heard these words, his eyes immediately became vigilant. The way that he looked at Imperial Consort Xian was completely different from before. Without any warning, he walked over to her side and grabbed a hold of her sleeve. We have been treated by the deity of medicine. Even if we do not ward off poison and ill omens, we should be fine. What does beloved consort think? Imperial Consort Xian's heart dropped. In the past, Gu Huaijiang was the only person in court whom Emperor Ning dreaded, and that was for wielding great power. Now, it was completely reversed. Aside from Gu Huaijiang, it seemed as though he was suspicious of everyone. He had given the eldest prince and the second prince the cold shoulder for quite some time, and today, he had come to say such a vague thing. Could it be that he knew something? Naturally. Your Majesty truly is the divine son of the dragon. With the blessing of the heavens, your Majesty will surely live a long life. He had grown accustomed to hearing people wish him a long life and did not think much about it. However, when he heard Imperial Consort Xian say these words today, it felt a little fake. We were just thinking that to be able to live to the age of 80 like my Empress Dowager Mother would be a very fulfilling feeling. What 10,000 years? My beloved consort would never use such fake words to comfort us before. Imperial Consort Xian awkwardly smiled. In the past, Emperor Ning would not say that she was saying something fake. Would such a woman truly try to poison him over the competition for the crown prince's position? He hesitated. We have hinted at it before, but we never gave you a solid answer. We told the second prince, and he and Danyang mentioned that this had been heard by that palace maid. It's inevitable that it would arouse the envy of other princes. It's possible that this was the reason that we mysteriously fell ill. Imperial Consort Xian suddenly dropped to her knees. Your Majesty means that someone coveted the crown prince's position enough to try and murder your Majesty. Yes, that is what we mean. She kowtowed deeply until her head touched the ground. In her desperate struggle to survive, an idea suddenly came to mind. If this consort may ask your Majesty, on the day that your Majesty's illness suddenly worsened, was it because the second prince and Princess Danyang said something? Why would she suddenly ask about this? Emperor Ning quietly said, on that day, the second prince suddenly came to us. Fearing that we would not recover from the illness, he wanted us. He suddenly found it hard to continue and stared at Imperial Consort Xian in disbelief. You mean to say that this was not done by the eldest prince but by the second prince? Chapter 245 Find a Scapegoat, Part 2, That Sly and Silver-Tongued Imperial Consort Xian. Princess Danyang paced back and forth in the hall, her face distorted with rage. The second prince was even more displeased. If I knew sooner, I would never have listened to you. Capturing Imperial Consort Xian's spy clearly put us in the right. But now, what a situation! Imperial Consort Xian whispered a few words, and Father Emperor has even begun to suspect us. After hearing that Imperial Consort Xian's spy had heard about appointing a crown prince, he suspected that Imperial Consort Xian and the eldest prince had poisoned him, leaving him unable to appoint a crown prince before he passed away. After a visit to Qinghua Palace, he had a different suspicion. The second prince wanted to ascend the throne sooner, thus decided to poison him to have him pass away sooner. He would then push him to quickly appoint a crown prince. As for the palace maid or spy, it was entirely possible that the second prince colluded with Princess Danyang to frame Imperial Consort Xian and the eldest prince. Both of these possibilities were quite high, and Emperor Ning could not figure out which side was more likely to have done it. He did not even have someone to talk about this with. Gu Huaijiang was loyal and never sided with either of the two princes. He was not alone. The loyal court officials, like Ji Gongdao, were also the same. But the more loyal the official, the more he was afraid of them getting involved in the competition. The cabinet had not yet been established, and he did not feel that Yin Shuo was worthy of trust. He had no choice but to throw himself at this difficult task. He would not see the eldest prince or second prince. He would not even see Imperial Consort Xian and Princess Danyang. Now, Father Emperor even suspects me. What is Imperial Consort Xian working off of? Is it not just pillow talk with Father Emperor? If Mother Empress was still around, we siblings would not be subject to such bullying. Princess Danyang slammed the table, her chest rising and falling out of anger. If Mother Empress was still around, she would definitely be reluctant to marry me to someone as useless as Yin Shuo. Enough. The second prince was annoyed. Your constant mentioning of Mother Empress is blaming me for not being able to take care of you. Is it not? Father Emperor's imperial edict decided this marriage. Not to mention how I'm currently not the crown prince, but even if I was, I would be powerless to do anything about it. Could it be that you want me to go and anger Father Emperor at such a critical time? Princess Danyang seemed to suddenly think of something. You don't dare to anger Father Emperor, so let's have someone else take the blame for this. Princess Danyang caught the tail end of spring and hosted a spring banquet, inviting everyone from Marquis Gu's manor and the children of the noble families of the capital. The setting was not in the palace. Instead, it was in a garden outside the city owned by the imperial family. Princess Danyang won't still have any ideas about eldest brother, right? At such a critical time, there are people from Western Kun in the city, and the people of Western Kun on the border could attack at any time. How can she be in the mood to host a spring banquet? After receiving their invitations, everyone from Marquis Gu's manor gathered in the western wing to discuss the matter. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi disliked Princess Danyang the most. In the past, they considered the possibility that she would become their eldest sister-in-law and remained a little respectful. Now, that respect had completely vanished. With a prospective sister-in-law like Yu Fu, who was charming and beautiful, who could possibly desire Princess Danyang? Even harder to come by was how lively and well-behaved she was. Any time that she wanted to try and do anything to get closer to Gu Shubai, they would resist. Gu Wenqing said, "It's precisely because people from Western Kun are in the capital, with the princess from Western Kun present, that Princess Danyang has an excuse to host the banquet under the guise of welcoming guests. Think about it, the princess is a daughter of a noble family. It would not do to have the eldest prince or the second prince welcome her, right? Since a prince could not receive her, it naturally meant that only Princess Danyang could take the stage." Gu Yi grimaced, "Western Kun's people don't care about that at all right? I think that Princess Danyang has an ulterior motive. Eldest brother, will you really be going? Alright, it would be such a pity to not take advantage of the great spring weather. Fourth brother, fifth brother, sixth brother, let's go together." As Yu Fu spoke, she suddenly said, "Huh? Where did second brother go?" Gu Shubai burst out laughing, "He won't go. These past few days, he has been taking care of the manor's affairs, spending his days hidden away in the treasury. Don't bother asking him. He won't participate in the spring banquet." He had not asked, so how did he know that Gu Jiugu would not go? Gu Shubai noticed the puzzled look in her eyes and continued, "Your status is now different. You can go to the imperial family's gardens whenever you want. If second brother wants to, you can bring him along next time. This time is no good." Princess Danyang also invited Yin Shuo and his sister. Everyone came to a sudden realization. Gu Jiugu was afraid of seeing Yin Jiyao, thus was hiding, right? This was also true. Yin Jiyao had told him her secret. If he did not cool things down, it was very possible for the girl to fall for him. With Yao Yu as an example, Gu Jiugu did not dare be negligent. Yu Fu quietly muttered, "Princess Danyang invited the man she likes and her future husband. She then invited people from Western Kun. The situation will surely be quite extraordinary." Chapter 246, Misidentifying the Princess, Part 3. The spring light was radiant and beautiful, and the four from Marquis Gu's manor set out on horseback and leisurely rode to the capital's outskirts. Gu Jiugu did not go, and Gu Wenqing also did not go. He said that if a guest came to the manor, there would be nobody to receive them, and there would be nobody to help Gu Huaijiang if he needed any help. As the younger brother, he could not just drag Gu Jiugu out of the treasury, right? As a result, he decided to stay in the manor to keep him company. While he was doing this, he would help watch the gate and receive any guests that came. This left Yu Fu, Gu Shubai, Gu Xiang, and Gu Yi, thus she decided not to ride in a carriage and rode a horse like the others. This made her feel quite pleased. Little Yu Fu, ride a little slower. Wait for me. Yu Fu rushed out like the wind, and Gu Yi hollered from the back, eldest brother is biased, giving Yu Fu such a good horse. It's even faster than my Zhui Feng. You'd best forget about it quickly. You yourself are worse than her, so you blame Zhui Feng. When you can't shit, do you blame the latrine? Gu Xiang pressed his horse ahead of Gu Yi's. Little Yu Fu's horse is not better than your horse. She's only been learning to ride for a short time, yet she's already better than you. Why don't you do a bit of reflecting? Saying this, he rushed ahead, leaving Gu Yi with just the sight of his horse's butt. Eldest brother, look at how he's bullying me. Gu Shubai ignored him. Ever since you were young, it's always been you bullying fifth brother. How could he bully you? I'll be going ahead. If you don't catch up, you will be laughed at by others. Gu Shubai also chased after Yu Fu, kicking up a cloud of dust. Previously, the worst of the family at riding horses was Gu Yi. When Yu Fu, who did not know how to ride horses at all, came along, he finally managed to recover a bit of face. While Yu Fu not learning to ride was normal, who knew how shocking it would be once she did. Her skill was on par with Gu Shubai's. Zhui Feng, put in a bit of effort for your master. Count this as me begging you. He whipped his horse's butt, and Zhui Feng neighed before charging forward. The four chased after one another. When they arrived at Chunhee Garden, many of the guests had not yet arrived. Princess, eldest young sir, and the other two young sirs, please come inside. Palace servants came out from inside to welcome them, leading their horses away. Princess Danyang has already arrived and is currently chatting with the other guests inside. This servant will lead you over immediately. I want to see the gardens around here. Yu Fu was in no rush to go inside. Looking at the garden across from Chunhee Garden, there was a round gate with a sign that had Jingming Garden written on it. The spring air is calm and warm, and the waves are gentle. The names of these imperial gardens were really quite amusing. I heard that there are a total of 5 gardens. What are the other 3 called? Replying to Princess, there are also Huifeng Garden, Hichang Garden, and Yuemei Garden. Of the 5, Chunhee Garden is the best and most suited for viewing during spring. As for the other gardens, there are some more suited for summer viewing and winter viewing. It turned out that there was this layer of reasoning. Yu Fu nodded. It's no wonder Princess Danyang chose Chunhee Garden. Since that's the case, we won't see any of the other gardens. Let's go in. She was a princess but did not refer to Princess Danyang as sister. Instead, she just called her princess, which gave off a very distant feeling. A light flickered in the servants' eyes, as they quickly lowered their head. Yes, please follow this servant. Knowing that Yu Fu would be coming, Princess Danyang was dressed particularly ceremoniously. Her dress was crimson with a vest embroidered with golden peonies. Like the paintings of beauties from the Tang dynasty, she was gorgeous and magnificent, the queen of the beauties. With the arrival of the group from Marquis Gu's manor, everyone's eyes turned to them. Yin Jiao looked at the group but did not see Gu Jiugu and felt quite disappointed. Princess Danyang was even more disappointed. Tian, noble imperial consort Yang, is a historical figure who was characterized as chubby in the novel Dream of the Red Chamber. You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.